This is going well.
Yeah, I hate having multiple screens.
It sounds like the zombies already took over the TV station.
Ah, crap. We're just gonna have to watch Ben Burgess yell logic over and over again.
In 1968, George Romero brought up Night of the Living Dead. It became the classic horror film of its time. Now, George Romero brings us the most intensely shocking motion picture experience for all times.
It gets up and kills. The people it kills get up and kill. This situation must be controlled before it's too late. They are multiplying too rapidly.
Dawn of the Dead.
Meet me on the roof at 9 o'clock. Get out.
I don't believe
We're
it.
gonna
What?
get out in the chopper. We've got to survive. Somebody's got to survive.
They kill for one reason. They kill for food. They eat their victims.
Imagine, if you will, that something has gone terribly wrong.
Shoot it, man.
Now, accept the fact that there's no escaping the horrible consequences. George Romero brings back the dead. Night of the Living Dead has ended. Dawn of the Dead is here.
We must not be lulled by the concept that these are our family members or our friends. They are not. They will not respond to such emotions.
Operator dead. Post abandoned.
We may never get out of the room.
It's everywhere. What the hell is it?
Looks like a shopping center, one of those big indoor malls.
What are they doing? Why do they come here?
Some kind of instinct, memory, what they used to do. This was an important place in their lives.
What is it?
We've got a war.
I'm afraid.
We have spawned our own savagery. Soon it will consume us all. It is a horrible, hauntingly accurate vision of the mindless excesses of a society gone mad.
They must be destroyed on sight.
When there is no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.
We are down to the line, folks. We are down to the line.
Dawn of the Dead.
Did it say there's no explicit sex in that picture? Is that what I saw on that disclaimer?
I don't know. Just, like,
Yeah. What happened was the
I'm out.
They ran the movie as unrated because they couldn't. They almost got a rated X for all the violence, and they're like, well, we can't do that. So the deal that they struck was they were going to say it was only 18 admitted, but not because there's any sex in this movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Violence, okay. Sex, not so much. All right.
Yeah, so that was what that disclaimer was all about.
Okay, so welcome to Movie Night Extravaganza. I'm Forrest Miller, and I am joined by my co-host, J. Andrew Dirt Mall World. It's a dirty world out there.
Yes.
He's here to break it down.
It is
full of malls.
Indeed.
All right, Conan
And
Neutron of Protonic Reversal and Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends. And tonight, his friends are here. Not so secret, you know. And Renee Rune, who writes everywhere. For one, the horror movie review blog Night Shift, and ReneeRune.com has really everything. There's a lot on there. I didn't really know how to do a great intro there.
Yeah.
It's everything from music mixes to writing to fashion stuff. Like it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's just like everything in my brain all mushed together and put out. So that's how I kind of express it all.
Coming from, I think, the furthest away of any guest so far, right?
Yeah.
Forrest?
I don't think, definitely. We definitely haven't had a guest from anywhere near Australia.
Yeah.
We're even in the Southern Hemisphere, I don't think.
No,
we're really messing up here. We're really more, like Northern Hemisphereist.
Yeah, well, like I'm in the future right now, so you guys are still in Friday and I'm in Saturday. So
how was last night? Did we do okay?
It was good.
Did the technical difficulties continue?
Yeah, no, we've just had all these crazy tech things happening in our area. So yeah, and I was like, as soon as it was coming time to come on here, it was like, let's all go. So yeah. We're good now.
Yeah, because fires haven't started back up, have they?
The fires? No.
Okay, yeah, it's a little early.
Yeah, it's maybe it was just in spring. So once it gets more close to summer.
Yeah, like end of summer, right?
Mm.
Okay.
Hopefully,
the closest thing I think we had to a guest in Australia was Kira Rossler talking about filming Mad Max Fury Road in Australia.
Yeah, that would have been amazing. I've been to Mad Max, where they film Mad Max 1 and Summer Fury and whatnot. I've been there like so many times as a child. We used to drive there. It's like this little town called Silverton, and it's literally.
Do they memorialize it? Do they kind of lean into it at all, or like?
Wait, is it Silverton also in Priscilla, Queen of the Desert?
Yes, I think it is actually technically. Yeah. It's like because it's no, so it's like kind of good to drive out to film and stuff, but still not that far to get to. So, and they just for Mad Max, they just built most of the stuff there, but it's all there. So like the actual pub that's in Mad Max is there. All the ruins and the stuff like that is there. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And they have camel rides, which I don't know how that really.
Just cause.
One way. Yeah, and cars that are painted by this artist out of Vegemite. So,
name the most Australian thing you could ever happen.
Yeah. It's like you just turn up and there's ruins and it's all like, it's a really cool thing. But yeah, we went all the time as children. And one of my dad's like really close friends is one of the motorbike stuntmen. In the first film when there's one of the bikies comes out, he's the first one that comes out and like does like a burnout and stuff. That's my dad's mate. So like, yeah, it was all kind of this weird circle of things. So it wasn't that far from where I lived in the middle of nowhere. So
I wonder, do a lot of people around there have connections to Mad Max? Like, like either knowing someone that worked on it or, that was an extra on it or like.
Definitely,
so many,
Definitely the first one because it was such a small budget film. Where it's filmed is, like I said, it's in the middle of nowhere. And I think the nearest like kind of place, it's not even a city, it's just another bigger town, is like a couple of hours away. So you really have to go. There's not much.
That's kind of what upstate New York. So, that's what parts of upstate New York are like.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why I asked, I was gonna say the reason why I asked is
Mel Gibson, and then everybody else is pretty much a random extra. Like the bikies were real bikies and like and all that kind of stuff, which is what I love about it. And then there's like
kind of the opposite of what they've done with the newer ones.
I think
on purpose, but because there's like Toe Cutter was obviously like the villain in Fury Road, like so they've done that like cool kind of callback, since you can't really be like, as much as they can like headline somebody and say like, oh, they're in this movie. Like they're kind of disguised by quite a bit of stuff.
A bunch of people in masks and stuff. Yeah.
It's
him, we swear.
Yeah. I loved Fury Road. I saw it at cinema when it first came out. And I was like, I'm having like heart palpitation. It was so fast. And the way that he used like pretty much no language, like the way he was able to convey that everything through like, I was like, after that, I was like, I think Tom Hardy's like a fucking really good actor. So
I made the mistake of bringing that up to Kira Rossler when we had her on.
Who actually edited all the dialogue and was like,
yeah,
and I was like,
she was like,
I made the mistake of being like, well, I feel like, there's not much dialogue. Like a lot of it is obviously sound effects. And she was like, actually, there's quite a bit of dialogue. And I was like, all right, I feel like maybe I shouldn't have said that. that was the one moment in the interview that I was like, oh, maybe I should have.
I did the same thing. Because I said like the very first line Tom Hardy nails the Australian accent, just like that first line.
It's like,
maybe not the rest of the movie, and it's just like, well, actually.
He did like 70 different accents, and like it's a noted thing on set. And but yeah, no, that was great because you guys both, hilarious. By the way, since it wasn't me, it was hilarious.
Yeah, I was gonna say great because we both fucked up.
No, it was great for me.
Well, then I got the really big fuck up in that interview because I'm the one who missed that she got divorced from her first husband and brought him up.
You mean my
God, no.
Well, they recorded some albums together, so like they're always going to be like he's never going to be out of her life whenever we talk about her.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're still a band. Those still play.
Yeah, and they're still good.
Yeah.
So the reason why I asked if they like memorialize it all is because since we're talking about Dawn of the Dead, I on tour went
nailed
to
that segment. The
Monroeville Mall had a Dawn of the Dead museum that was actually, they moved it away for a couple of years and they just reopened it, I guess, like a couple months ago. But it's small, but really cool because even though it's a mall and it's active mall and they have updated certain things, like the exteriors especially don't look the same at all. But like all the stuff that's like the behind the scenes stuff, like the stuff that the protagonists of the movie are hanging out mostly in, like the sort of not in front of the shops, looks the same. And that was real cool because I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. First of all, we can do it for free. So when you're on tour, that's great. Anything that's free is for me. And then secondly, it looks like the movie. And like a janitor may or may not have left the door open at one point. We got to explore around, but they got the museum back now. And apparently it's bigger than ever. And that's why I asked, because it's like the only reason anyone would go to the Monroeville Mall, unless you live in Monroeville. But the people that do, like they'll have like a convention and like they'll have like, I was, machete zombie. I was the guy that got the machete in the head. You want an autograph? Like
no, it's not immortalized like that at all. It's just like a place that you visit and you like take a photo and you like I'm at Mad Max, like, you know what I mean? Like there's no real museum, there's no like the original pub is there and basically all you do is you go in and you drink. So and like you can walk around the ruins, but there's nothing else. It's just dirt and desert. So
do they have a Pride festival there now because of Priscilla?
Yeah, we have one. Yeah, we have it.
Not because of Dawn of the. Oh, wait, never mind.
Dawn of the Dead.
I mean,
I was going to ask if that mall has a Pride festival.
Just for Conan, they're there for Pride. Celebrate Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
Yeah,
my Australian pen pal made me watch that movie when we were both in high school. He came up to visit, and he's like, after he watched the movie, he's like, just like completely embarrassed, going, "Mate, I'm so sorry. I thought this movie was funnier. It was really funny at 3 a.m. when I watched it last time."
It's okay. It's more like clever than funny.
Yeah, no, it's a good movie. It's just not,
It's more of a serious film, like actually, like it's
but he pitched it as being really funny.
Yeah,
because that's it gets linked to like Rocky Horror Picture Show too.
Then we watched Reckless Kelly.
Yeah, and Reckless Kelly, exactly, because Australia has this weird thing with cinema where we have like amazing films that just are like kind of underground, everyone knows. And then you have like these dreadful films, like, and Reckless Kelly has its benefits, whatnot, but like you have those daggy comedy films that are bad, and then we'll have
like that third Yahoo serious film,
Golden. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen Waking Fright, but that's a horror kind of film that everyone who's seen it has like that fucked me up. Like, it's a very like Australia has a weird vibe when it comes to our horror and like different sort of films. So like Waking Fright is one that like lots of people are like, what is this? And have you Bad Boy Bubby, which I can't watch anymore because it makes me feel quite ill. But like that's another one that's like really controversial as well. But yeah, we do have other movies other than Young Einstein and Reckless.
Well, and even like, and there's other, even like Walkabout and like stuff like that. There's a bunch of like
really
amazing,
cool
yeah.
And of course,
Romper Stomper.
Yes, Romper Stomper, and everyone.
Romper Stomper? Oh.
Yeah, Romper Stomper. Yeah. Yeah, like I remember when I first saw Romper Stomper, I was like mind blown, frightened, and like, ew. So,
I saw that in American History X at the same time. So like,
yeah.
That'll have you side-eyeing a lot of dudes that look a certain way, for sure.
That's how to desensitize yourself from anything else you're gonna watch, though. It's to watch American History X at the.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, saw cool.
Like, oh, yeah. There's some real like, and there's some real stellar like Aussie films that are just great. And I think Andrew, you'd like them a lot, especially because you like Paul Kelly. I think you'd get it, like the vibes and the that old school Aussie I guess attitude, especially of the 80s. So
yeah, I kind of got weirdly obsessed with Australia in the 80s because Crocodile Dundee came out, and I thought that movie was amazing. And like it just blew my mind. And then like right around the same time was like Facts of Life Go to Australia, which it's like there's George Clooney in Australia, and I love that. Like I'm like 9, so what do you expect from me? And then like Young Einstein came out, and I was obsessed. So like also I was listening to I couldn't find any Paul Kelly stuff, but I did find a lot of NXS, so I was like really into NXS, which is not a bad thing. And
we should probably transition this to talking about
back to the we could be here forever talking about.
We're gonna be talking about Happy Feet soon enough. I mean, Jesus Christ.
George Miller.
Actually, did you know that George Miller also directed Happy Feet?
All right, so Dr. Eric Osgood. I don't know if you guys know him. He's a pretty he's a patron, a good friend. He says that the social critique around zombies mindlessly flocking to a mall makes me think that in a modern version, zombies would just sit and shop on Amazon and scroll social media, which is interesting because before we got on, I was talking about how I really wonder after this pandemic, how George A. Romero, he's passed away now, but if he was still alive, how he would, how his movies would change after this pandemic, because I think that in terms of what his mindset would be, we've kind of seen both things. I mean, the clashes on TV and stuff that I think he predicted very well in what would happen during a pandemic. The scientists and the military in this case, because they've gone obviously farther than COVID has. People are literally returning from the dead, but obviously the state and scientists kind of have this alliance. And then it feels like in Dawn of the Dead, unlike in Day of the Dead, the first step is that it's kind of scientists and the military versus the people in a lot of cases. Because martial law is happening and law enforcement is kind of literally stopping people from being in their houses, which is probably the smart thing to do, but results in a lot of brutality because, it's the National Guard and it's local police. Those are not, the people that you want going into tenements and projects trying to get as what happens, trying to get, minorities out of their houses. Those are not those are the people that are obviously going to, shoot at least some of them. In a very brutal and we finally get to do this kind of way, kind of hurting them out like cattle. So it's interesting that that's kind of where the movie starts in this case.
Yeah, they started with that violence, so people who are watching are going okay, if they just blew that dude's head off, what's going to happen next? So they set
that's how it starts.
Yeah, and it's one of the best shots of the film too. Tom Savini worked really hard to get that head blow up. Correctly.
Yeah, I was gonna say Tom Savini, that shot of the guy getting his head shot off, just set Savini up for the rest of his life. It was after that film that he did Friday the 13th, and then it just continued. But I love the story about the head blowing up and how it was literally condoms filled with blood and shrimp dip and apple cores, and they just packed it all in there, and then everyone.
And he did it himself.
Yeah,
he was ran in with the shotgun and started off with the madness.
All back watching, and then when he did it, it was just a giant cheer, how that would have been an amazing thing to be there to see. That's the one thing I think with the Romero, the whole franchise, is you can tell which ones got Savini effects. because especially with Dawn of the Dead, like the effects are so amazing and gory and full on and gutsy. Like the scenes when the zombies are eating, the stomach and pulling out the entrails and stuff, and like they're actually pulling it out and they're actually actually it's in their mouth. Like, and I remember
they're excited about it. They're like clearly like, we're gonna
and it's all like flipping and flopping. And I remember reading, and also it was in one of the docos as well, that his wife Christine was saying that like the zombies used to fight over who got to eat like the stuff. Like they all wanted to do it, and she was like, I thought they were crazy that they were like actually like being like, I want to like eat that disgusting like brain thing that's like come from wherever. But
it's during like a really crazy seeming shoot where it's like they have the bikers there at the mall. They have like who are actual bikers, a lot of them. I mean, not Tom Savini, but like a lot of them are actual like actual biker gangs.
I forget the name of it.
It's bikies.
I remember they say who it is.
Bikey. I've never heard anyone call anybody bikies. I feel like if you called a biker a bikey, they'd hit you in
That's
the face.
what we call them here. Bikie.
Yeah, I know.
If you said
it has like cute names for everything.
If you said biker here to a bikie, he would probably just punch you in the face and be like, "What is that? Like, what is?" It's like that'd be seen as like the most like offensive thing. It's like a nerdy thing, like biker. Like that's someone who goes like on a hike or something, like a mountain bike, So it's like
I always say like I'm going on a bike ride. Like I don't know, I say something about like biking, and then people assume it's a motorcycle. I'm like, no, I'm riding my bike in a
it's bikey, and you should be all set because it's
bikie
I want to get a bikie from Australia and like a biker from the US to like talk to each other and be like, oh, are you a biker? Are you a biker? And then the other one.
I have no idea actually, because we do have, like we have some of the same bikie gangs here that you guys have. We definitely have the Hells Angels.
Well, yeah, y'all have Sons of Anarchy, so.
It was really popular, that show here, because the bikies thing here is quite big. There's certain states where there's lots of it, and we used to have huge bikie wars, whatever. But I love that they used real bikies, and they just thought it was like Christmas Day.
Yeah, they're tearing ass around like J.C. Penney's and stuff. It's like that would be like great. That
Yeah, and then like
here, so I have a clip that they're talking about it, the biker part of it, and I think it's that documentary. It's from the making of documentary that I found that I sent you guys, which is I think pretty amazing. How much work that they really put into every single shoot, and how much it seems kind of like shooting a student film. Like they just kind of found people to throw in there, and like they had their friends. All of a sudden, the zombies. Which of course, who else would you get? You know what I mean? Like it's not like you're gonna put out like a huge call for that many zombies in like the 70s. But I don't know. So I found this part interesting.
We knew there were going to be bikers in the movie, and then the bikers showed up, and and they're real bikers. It's the pagans,
like Hells Angels type people. They were very nice, all really nice people.
They came out and brought their bikes, and just for the goof of it. We had the whole gang for a day or two. We also needed people who were able to deliver lines. And Tom Savini said, well, what about us?
We're macho actors, stunt guys, on Dawn of the Dead. We got to, be part of this group. Casa was Sledge. With the sledgehammer, that was his character. He was Sledge and I'm Blades.
They were just great. I mean, they were just, again, energetic, and they added a lot of flavor and color and actually created these couple of little characters that people remember.
The biker invasion was very surreal and very, very loud.
One of the ways that they got in was blowing out a big glass window, okay?
And everybody came down to see the effect. Gary Feller was Mr. Special Effects guy. Gary's whole idea was bigger, better.
They put too much explosive power behind that bomb.
I think the entire glass side of the mall went up in a Huge explosion.
And then we did the big flood entry of all the bikes and bikers.
And they were great. The leader was really cute. And I rode on the back of his motorcycle in a shot. And you just see a flash of my back. That was fun.
For these guys to ride their bikes through a shopping mall must have been a charge.
They did everything we asked, whipping around the mall in their motorcycles. It was kind of hard to tame them down.
It really was our biggest event. Because now we're talking probably literally 500 zombies plus bikers. It was chaotic, and it was probably as close to combat photography as you can imagine, because we didn't have two cameras and we just ran around shooting the chaos. Communication was almost impossible. George and I lost total communication. I didn't know where George was. He just kept rolling.
George came to me and said, I'd love to see a biker go through a storefront window. Yeah, sure, I'll do it, So they built the plate glass window and they laid it down on the floor. And I don't think the floor was even because the glass poured up about that thick, okay? It was like going through a brick wall. But the motorcycle broke it, the bike went out from under me, and I hit the ground. I should have been paralyzed. I should have been killed, perhaps. I show this accident to people. Oh my God! You broke your neck?
There's a scene.
Definitely broke that car.
Yeah, it would have.
Community force.
When they mention like losing contact and noise and everything, I can actually hear it in my head. It's like we have, like I don't know if you've ever experienced like a huge bikie gang driving past. It's the most intense sound. Imagine putting that inside of a building and it's just banging off all the walls. Like it would be so loud. Like,
and you have to record sound. I mean, because it's a film shoot. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's kind of crazy to like think of somebody like having to change the level or like because it's like it's the 70s. Like they don't have
red line.
Yeah, like,
it's like one big brick of sound.
They're like yeah, but I also like the idea of like Tom Savini kind of seemingly trying to one up the bikers. Like what I mean? Like they're all running around, kind of doing like stunts and like kind of fucking things up and. Drinking at the bar and whatever, and he's like, oh, I'll go through a plate glass window.
Yeah,
like,
check this out.
Yeah.
Hey, y'all, check this out.
Yeah, you guys are cool, but yeah, I'm gonna do some real shit.
I love to like 3 inches of glass now. And when he gets killed, he drops off of the banister, right? And they made this like mattress kind of landing place for him, which he did not land in. And he didn't land properly into it at all, and probably could have broke both of his legs, but didn't. So
he had to spend the next several days in a golf cart driving around to do all of the special effects work.
That's great.
Which, by the way, so the fact that he dies in this scene, I mean, like the chaos of it. Flyboy gets like bitten and then is running around, by the end of it as a zombie, which I guess is a term that only actually gets used in this movie. The other George A. Romero movies, they never really quite call them zombies. I was listening to George Romero give a talk today, like when I was on my bike, like I was listening to an old talk that he gave, and he was saying that he used it once in this movie and he doesn't think he ever actually used it again. But
they need to. It was that influential.
So I think it's interesting that it kind of gets into like the logic and morality of the Living Dead universe, which because it seems like they set Flyboy up to be killed from the beginning. Like he falls into like one category of either people that are kind of too innocent or just not suitable for this this new world that they're living in, right? And then the dichotomy of that is Tom Savini's biker, who like it seems like all of them are perfectly suited for this world, and those are also the people that get killed off. And it makes me think of like Vietnam War movies, which is funny that Tom Savini was in Vietnam, because like every Vietnam War movie that really came out that's like an anti-war movie, it's either the person that you think is the most suited to be in Vietnam that gets killed, and the people that you think are the least suited. And there's, you know, people that kind of are good at surviving, but not necessarily fully embracing survival in that same way that usually live till the end.
Yeah.
Well, Monroeville was my personal Vietnam, so yeah. But go.
They say in that though, it's like parts of this was like the closest thing you could really get to combat photography.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, it's funny that they also say that about, I mean, Vietnam War movies.
Yeah. Yeah. And everything, I think one of the things that I love most just in general about this film is that they didn't have that much money behind it, but like Romero had like free reign to do whatever he wanted. Like, you know, Argento took him and said, come to Rome, and it'll, you know, inspire you, you'll write. And he just said, you make whatever movie you want to make. I'm not gonna, you know, police it in any way. And then he just it's amazing what he did with like such a low budget, like, and a lot of the actors had never acted before. Like the Francine had never acted before, and like, you know, pretty much all the protagonists were not actors. Like, you know, I think the main two guys worked in a restaurant or something, so they were just like scouted like that.
They found them working at a restaurant locally.
Yeah. So it's like and
every actor's dream, of course.
Yeah. Is that where they all start? Because I feel like every story I've ever heard about like Hollywood actors is that they worked in a diner. I feel like
there's I mean, in New York City and in LA specifically, like there's a lot of places that are like just staffed up by, you know, wannabe actors, and like so like famously like someone will get plucked out of that restaurant and then they'll be like, oh, that's someone that went on to be a star. But it's like those places are like, I mean, actors are very they're superstitious people more than anything else. But I mean, I
remember growing up that they were like that all around Atlanta too, like completely hammy and would like do different things and like you know, like magic tricks or whatever. And then like,
do you want your food? You know, me.
Like he'd, you know, they come check on us and like pull things out of like stuff, and it was, you know, like little sleight of hand. It was
Are
weird.
you sure you were just like at a bad restaurant and they were like, you know, making a big deal out of like pulling like cockroaches out of your food to be like, oh, and like, wow, that was an intentional magic trick. Nope.
No, this wasn't my trip to Shreveport.
The thing is, you never make eye contact. If you make eye contact, it's all over.
I'm gonna make all of these OSHA regulations disappear.
Having nothing to do with literally any of that. As Renee, as the woman with the Argento shirt, what do you think of the Argento cut and the whole zombie kind of spin-off pantheon of Dawn of the Dead?
Like I prefer the Romero version, but I also like, I appreciate the way Argento has like such a more, his eye is, I feel like, much more visually aesthetic, like is his eye, and I feel like so he cut the parts that like and redid and edited like in a way that certain things that normal directors wouldn't really focus in on, he did, which gave it extra like kind of dimensionality to things that I think that, you know, wouldn't have been there had he not been involved. And even he worked on the translations, and he was the one who released them worldwide in all the non-English speaking countries. I mean, I think he did an amazing job, and he's a completely different director altogether. And I loved the idea that he was so blown away by Romero that he came in kind of to be like, yo, dude, you're awesome. Don't stop here. Like, and, you know, I think he even says in that documentary you were talking about, Forrest, that he mentions in there that he was like, he's like little enthusiastic like bunny that was just there like you know, just great, like you're great, you know, bellissimo, like, and just like really pumping him up, because he, at that time, George had kind of gone silent. He'd done, I think it was it Season of the Witch, and he was working on Martin, and it just, nothing was really, Hollywood wasn't grabbing him. And then, like, I think, you know, Argento came in and kind of re-energized him. And you can even see when he talks about this film that this is the film that he feels proud almost of more, in a way, I feel. Like, coming from Night of the Living Dead, you kind of, it's like got that. And then when it gets to Dawn of the Dead, all the dimensions of the characters, the way the stories align with each other, like the relationships, all that kind of stuff is explored much more. And then the gore level and zombie level is just 10 times that, you know. And that's when you start to see slowly that zombie evolution of them starting to get slightly faster.
Yeah.
You know, that, like, because it's like, and then it's not until you get later in the later films when they start getting a bit more fast, and, you know, you get that whole, they're learning now and whatnot.
28 Days Later kind of really started that whole off. And then the Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, of course, took that with no explanation whatsoever to the next level.
You know, Tom Savini kind of has defended that choice by saying, like, you know, there's so many zombie movies, like, you need to find a way to make them scary once again. And it's like, you know, fast zombies are obviously scarier. So maybe, like, you know, maybe the fact that they're not, that, you know, because Romero famously didn't want fast zombies ever. Like, he was like, you know, like the only good zombie is a slow zombie. But no, so I think that the fast zombie trend makes them a lot scarier at a time when, you know, there's a whole bunch of zombie movies that have come out, you know, since this. But at the same time, I mean, I've never really liked fast zombie movies. It just feels off to me.
It's a little weird, and it feels more like a pandemic apocalyptic. Like, it's more like that, and that's how they explain it, kind of, you know, more so in Dawn of the Dead, the new one, which the one that Tom worked on, was like the one where everyone is mega fast, like so fast, and actually so fast paced. It actually did scare me, because I was like, you feel like you know, when you see them, you feel like you can outrun them. Like,
right. But these ones are like like marathon
these
runners.
Ones are like Olympic running
after you.
And, you know, and they're trying to, like, shut the roller door, and they're like fucking all coming so fast.
Which kind of, it strips it of the ability really to make great social commentary in some ways, because I think for the social commentary really to work, it's never really about the zombies. And I think when zombie movies realize it's never really about the zombies is when they excel. When it starts becoming purely about the horror of, like, the terror from actual zombies. I'm not saying that kind of movie can't work, but I am saying that it kind of it destroys the ability to kind of have these slower scenes where the characters are interacting amongst each other, and you know, the terror isn't like, oh my god, they're coming after me right now. Like, it doesn't seem like, it seems like a lot of the times.
And the waiting.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, it's like the patiently waiting, that the nervous, like, tension of, like, any second now kind of thing. Whereas when they're fast, it's just like you can hear them. There's a big rush of them, and, like, I think it works, like I said, in the Savini film, but I don't think it works in many films. Like, I think he managed to make it work in a different way. But he also drew, like, you know, he also drew very heavily on the interpersonal relationships, which was the one kind of link I felt that was very like the Romeros. Romero always links back to the protagonists and the interpersonal relationships, and how each protagonist deals with the situation. So, you, like you said, like, people you think are going to come out as a hero usually end up being, like, first to die, or, you know, like the ones that lose their mind, and, you know, you just
well, I think that there's kind of a logic to it, and I've been thinking in these terms a lot because of our slasher watch through, where it's like, you know, like the tropes of, like, the final girl and all these different horror tropes. And I think with zombies, it kind of starts. I mean, the Romero films definitely start like a lot of these tropes, which are like, I think that there's always someone that's unhinged to start with, and they make it pretty clear that the person's unhinged to start with. Yeah, and there's all, which is Flyboy in this movie, I think. I mean, you can see him pointing the gun at Peter, which like in that one scene, or he does, you know what I mean? Like you see that part of it, and you feel like from the beginning, like it's not like the person's insane, but like they're off enough that you're like, okay, this is someone that pushed over the edge is probably going to snap in some way.
Yeah,
and
is it Flyboy or the blonde dude?
I think Flyboy is the one that's a little bit unhinged.
Because he kind of comes like it's more of greed at the end is what gets him. Like this is mine. As opposed to the blonde dude who I always forget his name. But he made such a great zombie, like the makeup job on him.
Skinny one, Roger.
I'm sorry.
Roger, I think.
Roger.
Got Ranger.
Ranger.
I think
because like he's a little more unhinged.
He's the wild card.
Yeah.
Right.
I think Flyboy is the one that's a little bit off in my reading of it, and then I think he's the one that's like just not suited to live in this environment. You know what I mean? Like I didn't get the feeling that like he's off in the way that he'd be a danger to other people. He's kind of the one that really can't take it. So this movie kind of starts. It's two different tropes of people that you're not really really going to make it through this. Like he's kind of. I mean, his friendship with Peter is so like pure and so you know what I mean. Like, and he seems like you can see at the beginning they're kind of leading up to him getting bitten. Like from the very beginning of when you meet him to that other blonde guy is like he's like, hey, like what's your name? Like trying to make like the clearly youngest person on the SWAT team feel all right. That's like struggling with it, and then that guy gets shot right away. And you kind of feel like, all right, this is somebody who's kind and gentle, and they're not suited to live in this zombie world. Definitely not suited to be in the SWAT team. When the other guys run around.
I kind of wonder how he passed some of the like the psychological testing. Like it was a bit lax back then because you didn't really get sensitive, like that's one of the things that kind of ticked you off the list. But
they were on smoke break when that was, or I'm sorry, Smoko when that happened.
Yes, Smoko, yeah.
You guys really brushed up on your Australian lingo before coming on.
I love it. Yes, Smoko, yeah.
How do y'all feel about Francine? Like how she was treated within, because basically most of the movie is like them telling her like, hey, you can't come along for this. Like we're gonna go do this thing, and like she's like,
I found that weird. Like I found that really strange, but I also found George Romero's response to it weird. Like his response was like, I don't want to get involved with the dynamics and like what's going on. Like he kind of closed his eyes to it, like that there was this toxic kind of behavior happening on set with the male actors not inviting her to anything or not, including her. But then George, I feel like George also gave her the reins in that with, she actually and play that like poor woman character, which we were so used to seeing. And it would have been certain scenes where you would have been like, oh, okay, here comes the woman now. She's going to be just walk out of the room in her underwear for no reason. And then zombies, you know what I mean? And
which happens all the time.
Oh, all the time. I mean, every slasher movie ever made, that's the main trope is like, oh, the girl walks out in just her underwear, like always. And and Romero
really starting with Psycho, I guess. I mean,
exactly. Like it's always been that like point of that necessary vulnerability, but like it's either we've got to show their tits or like they're in underwear or some weird thing where they're really vulnerable, and then it was like a precursor to any horror film. And then the character Francine was meant to be like, come everyone save me, help me, and that kind of thing. And then Romero asked her like, you need to scream, blah, 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 and she blatantly said, no, I won't, like I'm not going to do that. And then he like changed his mind, and he kind of went, and so it kind of has this like feminist aspect to it, where it's like she's like, no, I'm as much as capable as any other character in here to be able to deal with the situation. Like, I'm not going to play that character, and that's pretty, like, for someone who's actually never acted before. Yeah, who's never acted before either, and then like to say to a director like, no, I'm not being that female character. So I think he made up for it in other ways, but then that stuff offset, like, yeah, definitely sounds like not quite right. But then I guess we've never really heard the backstory from the guy's perspective. We've only ever heard it talked about in third party, like the actress talking about it, and then George, but we've never really heard what the guys said, like whether it was because they just had a more of affinity together working, like she felt more like a separate like entity or something, you know. But I think she held her own, even, you know, like she wasn't like a constant. I just, my one thing is that one girl, the one that screams all the time and cries and carries on, like Night of the Living Dead, for example.
Yeah,
the female, like you want to pick her up and you want to slap her 10 times. Like you just, I just want to knock her out. And
it reminds me of the airplane scene where the girl's freaking out and everybody walks up to her and they're like, "Get a hold of yourself."
Yeah, they like get in line to slap her. Yeah.
I mean, you know, not to digress, but like with Night of the Living Dead, when, you know, the lead protagonist was a black male, and at that time that was very controversial, and then to have the other protagonist, you know, the precious like white, you know, oh woe me, like kind of woman, and the scene where he just whacks her in the face, I was like, that was George Romero setting the tone for, I'm not playing by anyone's rules here, like, you know, and we'd never seen that.
Whoa.
Like, whoa, we got two.
Andrew, you killed yourself. What happened?
I got bit by the internet zombie, and
it's an outbreak.
That was insane.
How did you?
Yeah,
do that?
I think that was like a precursor to where George was going. Like he always had a vision that was different to mainstream horror. It was like, I'm not afraid to touch these things. And like when that film came out, yeah, like I said, having a black male hero protagonist, and you know the poor white, you know, woman, and then the rest of the characters being useless white people that were mostly just useless. And then and then when he hits her, and you're actually sitting there all going like, yeah, dude, like fucking smack her, like you wanting to hit her, like, and that's the thing, you're like, oh my god, I shouldn't want this, but I actually just someone whacked the shit out of her. She's like so annoying. And
well, also in movies, I mean, at that time you kind of could, like, a lot of movies, I feel like someone would like start freaking out and the answer wouldn't be like, all right, calm the person down. It'd be like,
yeah,
like, which is what they're making fun of. Yeah, like, which is what they're making fun of in Airplane, which is a joke that you definitely couldn't pull off today because, you know, it would be seen as completely like brutal to women. But like, you know, the thing was that you could in a lot of movies, in pretty much every movie where someone started freaking out, like, or any high sense situation,
just whacking,
as if like they're trying to.
I think where George made it different was he played with the race. He played with the race thing, which hadn't been done in the same way. Like you could smack someone around, but you kind of had to. The person had to be like a bad person, or it was in a sense, you know, you just not a regular person. You couldn't. We'd never seen that happen with a female male dynamic, but certainly not a interracial or like a black white version. So it was very like whoa at the time. And then, you know, as he moved on, and then like Dawn of the Dead's perfect example. He's always been really diverse and inclusive. Again, one of the main protagonists is a black man, and he's very strong, and you know, he's essentially you know, the main kind of hero in
basically the main character. I mean, certainly the
and he's incredibly likable, I think. Like, you know, he's and that was the same with Night of the Living Dead. That character was really likable. He wanted nothing to do but to help, and this crazy woman is like Karen Smackdown.
It is a Karen Smackdown, man. You're right.
I have an interesting theory about it. why
can I tell
Romero
a
made-
story after you do this? So
Yeah. Well, no. So I have this clip that is queued up perfectly right now. So
I hope it's the clip I was going to reference to.
Oh, you're gonna. All right. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, play the clip. We'll see if it's the one I was thinking of.
I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, just say your thing.
Oh yeah, thanks for giving him permission.
Oh my God, the co-host is taking over the.
Well, there's two of me now.
Fran was the
he's already outnumbered you.
Thing,
so.
pregnant.
I kicked one of them from the studio. So now there's only one Jay in the world. One of them I had to say, out.
The other one's on thin ice.
The other one I had to smack around a little bit.
That's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Like, just clone.
In the beginning of the film, Fran was the drag, the weak thing, pregnant, getting morning sickness. On the other hand, she sort of came through as a heroine and not just somebody that they had to take care of. I liked it when Franny got strong. Usually horror films had women running around in underwear at that point, screaming and crying and being chased by the monster. And I think why there's such a respect for this film is because it went to another place. We were at the airport and there was a zombie and George wanted me to scream. I said, I'm not going to do it.
I won't scream. I'm not going to fall down. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that.
He's like, what do you mean you're not going to? I said, I'm not screaming. I wasn't going to run and scream or cry or do any of that.
And Galen sort of woke me up to the idea that that's not necessarily the way it should go.
It was early feminist, pre-Sigourney Weaver, pre-Alien, where the woman was the protagonist that hadn't been explored yet in horror films. After that, he never asked me to scream. Maybe he thought I couldn't, so why bother?
Well, Robin interpreted Day of the Dead as a feminist message. From my perspective, when I first made Night of the Living Dead, the character of Barbara, who was this ineffectual female who kept. The heels fell off her shoes. She fell down in the grass and became eventually just this catatonic, ineffectual character. I think that I've spent the rest of my career apologizing for having treated her that way, but that's the way women were supposed to be in horror films. It was the perils of Pauline. I realized that I needed to try to do something about this. And so gradually in Dawn of the Dead, I made the character of Fran, the lead woman, more stronger and gave her, she had something to say about the final decision. And then finally in Day of the Dead, I'm the female character in Day of the Dead, Sarah, was the protagonist, basically. I think that in my mind, I was just sort of apologizing and I was progressing these women because I felt somehow that I needed to do that. Robin analyzed this as if it were intentional from the pop, and it wasn't. When I first made the film, it's just like the lead character in Night of the Living Dead was an African American. And it was only because he was the best actor from among our friends. It was accidental to some extent. And basically this progression of the females in those three films particularly was to some extent accidental, but I was also trying to just apologize for what I had done to them before. So it was not a strategy. It wasn't anything that I sat down and said, okay, I'm going to take this, make her first weak and then have her progress a little more and then make her like ultimately really strong. It's something that grew as I grew.
Okay, you didn't tell the story I was thinking of, because I read or saw an interview at some point where he was trying to impress a girl. So he's like, "Hey, check out this movie I made." So they watched Night of the Living Dead, and he's like, well, what'd you think? I'm pretty woke, aren't I? Because there's a black guy in the movie. And she's like, yeah, but your women characters suck. And that was the
There's the
genius.
lie.
that was actually where Franny kind of started, or Fly Girl, as sometimes she's credited, which I'm always amused by.
Wow, she's got to be Fly Girl because he's Fly Boy. Not bad.
Yeah. I don't know. I saw that and all I could think of was just In Living Color and J Lo.
It's. I wasn't going to say anything, but since you were coarse enough to say it, I'm going to agree. I thought of that too.
I just loved I loved his acknowledgement that like he, he kind of he was making up all the way along there for all of that. It's like, yeah, you gave us Barbara, I mean, but I mean that scene, I'm coming to get you, Barbara, was one of the best things in the world. Like,
yeah, no, it's amazing.
Like, so
I mean, that guy is more useless than her, which is, I think,
way useless. Like he's pathetic. That
he doesn't make it through the first scene.
As evidenced by how it turns out for him.
I think one thing in early horror movies is that, not early horror movies, but like this early period of like, modern horror movies, I guess, is that I think a lot of times a lot more guys actually, when you look at it, either a lot more or an equal amount of guys get killed, or you know what I mean, are useless. But because there's so few like women characters, and because they're like often in like prominent roles, you start because if you don't have that many like women as characters and they're all getting killed, like everybody's like, well, this is this incredibly misogynistic a way to treat women, because that guy was far more useless than she was. Like, at least she made it to the end of the movie. Like, he was dead within like the first few seconds.
Yeah. She at least gave it a shot, even if she was as annoying as hell, and you just like, almost kind of wish she died, but but then at the same time, it made for great dynamics. Like, I felt like Night of the Living Dead to me felt like it was written as a play, as a stage play. That the inside
part of Night of the Living Dead really shocked me because, I mean, I'm looking at it through like a racial lens. Like, all of a sudden, like, a bunch of white men show up and instantly just like kill the black guy after he's made it through the whole movie, and all of the white people that he's with are pretty
spoilers.
I think once something's in the public domain,
I was gonna say what's like 50 years ago or something. Yeah, 60.
Yeah. And if you're watching a podcast about Romero and you don't know about Night of the Living Dead, I think you're in the wrong
Never
podcast.
saw that one. Is it any good?
Or else if you're in a time zone so far away that it's 1967.
Yeah, hasn't come out yet, actually. Yeah.
That's how time zones work, right?
Sorry, didn't mean to take you off task, but it's what I do in this show.
No, but like, you know what I mean though. Like, oh really, you're gonna put this in my face like that with your name right now? No, so I've been watching it or listening to enough horror directors and producers kind of justifying people that do want to expand on the universe and have made an effort, like Romero and like John Carpenter, and like, you know what I mean, like, to actually realize that there is that deficit. Also kind of justifying it by saying, and then you have to really, like, when you actually count them, it's like, all right, like, you're right about that technically, but also like the lack of representation in different categories, I think, or the amount of characters that are like, prominently killed. Like, it's like there's I don't know, it does feel like, but like the Romero, like, oh, this is how women were supposed to act in horror movies. I think it's bullshit.
Yeah, and it was also so disproportionate to the population. Like, I imagine, I always think about it, I always talk about it with friends and housemates. Like, if this happened here, like in Australia, like right now, like, women outnumber men, and like women are actually like mostly like the natural like defender of the nest, you know what I mean? And like, I feel like most women would react really positively in that situation of extreme stress. And they, so when it gets to the later films, like they were just talking in the clip, and how the main protagonist ends up being the female when they're in the bunker and all that with the military crazy guys. She's the strong like voice of reason.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's like as it progresses, it gets more. Because like I feel like if that happened, like my housemate was like, dude, I'd probably run like, a little bit up the road and fucking have a heart attack and be eaten and gone. Like, like to be 100% real. Like, like the stealth and agility involved as well as being in that scenario. Like,
I mean, everything in Australia is trying to kill you, so of course Sheila's got to be tough.
yeah. I mean, but there's a lot. I think women's are a bit more tough, and but the one disadvantage we have is, like I was saying to my housemate, is not unlike America, we don't have this fascination with guns. So I was like, I always say to him when watching horror movies, like, what would we do if there's zombies all of a sudden? Like, we don't have guns and shit at all. Like, so we'd be just grabbing like toasters and kettles and pans and shit.
Shaun of the Dead. Look at how they did Shaun of the Dead.
Right? It'd be like it'd be random objects from anywhere. So I think
wasn't it an Australian film with a triple barrel shotgun?
Yeah, but it's like it's illegal here to have, like, no one has guns. Like, only
because you got a civilized country, even though it's made of criminals.
We can't have like.
There was the one. I mean, what is Port Arthur or whatever, the one. The one really like tragic mass shooting in Australia, where ostensibly, of course, like
the
one mass shooting happened, and then
not like one a week, like over here.
Yeah. So we had that, and that was in Tasmania, which is like a part of Australia, but it's like the underneath, and that happened, and immediately it was like, okay, how are we going to get people to get rid of all these guns? Like, and it was like, okay, the government came up with a buyback scheme. So basically what you did was you gave your guns and they gave you money for them. Most people can't argue with that. So it was like, if you have any guns that are above this, you can't have them. You have to have a license and all this other stuff. So the government just bought all the guns back, literally paid for them.
Yeah.
And that was how it worked.
Triple barrel shotguns.
Yeah. So it's
I mean, that's what I loved about Bad Taste. They actually had to like build their own guns, and they didn't look like anything real. They were ridiculous.
Is Bad Taste different than Bad Takes? All right,
yeah.
Give it that plug. You got to hit it with the plug now.
Yes. I'm trying to book the next episode of Bad Takes. So we're watching Wolf Warrior 2.
So a couple of things. First of all, I think that a lot of people, and I think it's right, it's a plot device in a lot of these horror movies, that everyone's kind of like, you always got to have like the Michael Gross in Tremors character, right? Where there's like, this is the gun hoarder, and like he's like, the big Second Amendment guy. Oh, suddenly he's the annoying guy in town all the rest of the time, but now you want to know me because I got all the weapons. I thought that was a good tact, as much as like it wouldn't turn out like that at all in real life. But I also think it's amazing, to the earlier point, that it kind of took until Sigourney Weaver, like Ripley in Alien.
I'm also reading the comments and laughing. There's so many Australian weird comments.
But it took until Sigourney Weaver.
I like Australian zombies. Each one's a different comment. Don't say brains.
They say mate.
Yeah. See ya.
That's good. That's good. It's almost better to get the delayed reaction like that for the show. But I like.
I was just reading a lot.
Yeah. Well, whatever. If the comment
I
section
wasn't
is
trying to culturally appropriate by.
I love it. The beauty. I think the beauty of Australians, and some people forget it overseas, is the beauty of Australians is. One of the biggest tenets of our culture is we love to take the piss out of ourselves. So it's very hard to offend an Australian, because we offend ourselves and think it's hilarious. So,
I remember drinking with some Australians, and one of them was just going after Newcastle for some reason. She hated Newcastle. She's like, everything's great but Newcastle. And then like this one dude's like, hey, I'm from Newcastle. She's like, oh my god, I'm sorry. Like, she starts apologizing.
Yeah,
he's like, no, I'm just fucking with
it. We call Newcastle Spew Castle.
Yeah.
It's a real shithole.
So not to take away from the Spew Castle, but if I may, I think it took until Sigourney Weaver, specifically in Alien, to kind of have like a female protagonist that is like taken like, oh, she's no joke, like that's for real. But I think that,
which makes it, by the way, which makes it funny when she says, when the actress that played Fran, says, oh, early feminist, which 1978 obviously is not in like, you know, in cultural terms, early feminist. But then you realize she means like within horror and sci-fi, like as a genre, like,
within the genre, right?
Yeah, but it's
like,
funny to say it. It's funny to not specify you're talking about within the genre. It's like, oh, early feminist, 1978. You're like, huh, that doesn't really. And they're like,
Gloria Steinem, hello, but like, but really, when it comes down to it, if you're talking about representation in cinema, I mean, I think Franny is actually kind of a very key character towards like equal representation, certainly in the genre. That, let's face it, as much as I love it, like noir is worse. Noir is almost, you know, by its very nature misogynistic, but like, let's just go ahead and say, you know, took a bit more. Well, but the thing is also, like, you know, it comes back to Halloween, right? Like the stuff we talked about when we were talking about the original Halloween, and we were talking about, like, you know, why is Jamie Lee Curtis, you know, the whole final girl establishment, the tropes that it created accidentally, not trying to create those tropes, but
which
like
is,
things that
is a similar thing you could say about George A. Romero and Night of the Living Dead, right? Like,
sure,
I think there's some amazing, not amazing, but like some incredibly interesting, I guess, parallels.
Amazing.
Some of the most amazing parallels you've ever seen. You've never seen anything like it.
Best parallels ever.
But like, there's parallels with, you know, both directors having a partner that's like, you know, that's helping either produce or co-direct the production. Both have
unsung,
you know,
partner that didn't get credit till way later.
But they both ended up becoming powerful producers, you know, in their own right later on. I think that there's also, you know, I mean, in both cases with Jamie Lee Curtis and with Fran, their first time actresses that, you know, ended up having a say in changing the history of this genre forever. And I think in both cases, I mean, in both, like, they're creating these tropes that live on, sometimes on purpose and sometimes accidentally. Like, I think that, you know, the scientist versus military angle that George A. Romero takes is something that is very purposely like, you know, what would happen in this situation. But I also think that, you know, as he admits in that, like, you know, both the racial undertones of Night of the Living Dead, the gender undertones of Night of the Living Dead, and I think going forward into Dawn of the Dead with the, I mean, both, I think probably, like, they're accidental, and they've evolved. They've evolved because he's collaborating with amazing people, and he's kind of a hands-off director. He kind of mostly cares about the zombie part of it, and like, you know, writing something with certain themes, and then kind of gives the actors a lot of, which I think John Carpenter does too. I think you know, like, it's kind of a more hands-off, like, we're not creating this character for you in the sense of, like, you know, creating their motivations, creating their wants, their fears, like all of the things that would make them a human being. You kind of have to do that as an actor, and we'll collaborate. But here's what I want to do with, you know, whoever's coming to kill them.
By the way, can we just give a shout out to George Romero's glasses, which are super sick, and like, I think have come back around to be awesome again.
Yeah, definitely.
Not that was a fantastic point. I just wanted to get that out there.
No, I was going to say as well, like, it probably, you know, you can't tell whether it's really intentional or not, but even in, you know, in Night of the Living Dead, he started that thing with the whole toxic masculinity ego thing, you know, when they're like, the lead character then discovers the people downstairs, and you've got all these men fighting and vying for ego and power and control, like, and who's like listening to who, and I'm not going to listen to this black man. I'm, you know, and like, all that is kind of an undertone cultural thing that I feel like he didn't even realize at the time was happening. But it's quite poignant in like the story arc, on top of everything else that's going on, that there's this weird, first time you sort of saw that weird, like, interaction that males have when there's like some kind of crisis, and everyone wants to be the boss and say what's the right way to go. I felt they worked a bit better together in Dawn of the Dead. Like they seemed to work more like a cohesive team rather than so much against each other.
Yeah. Well, and the one that has his shit together is the black guy, you know.
Yeah.
Basically.
Which I just want to point out, my favorite scene though is when they meet that other group and they have that young guy who's like, "Hey, you got a cigarette? You got a cigarette?" And like she said no. They get on the helicopter and she lights up and he just gives her this look like, what white people shit did I get into?
yeah. I was gonna say one thing I think we have to talk about that we can't not talk about is the zombie makeup in this film, because I love how Tom Savini talks about 1 minute's green, 1 minute's purple, 1 minute it's gray. Like,
yeah, no, and it's the gray that sticks with it.
Yeah, and it kind of like he couldn't get it right because he didn't know how to transition the zombie
making the art
color.
Yeah, black and white. Night of the Living Dead's a black and white movie. They had no frame of reference for any of this.
They were eating chocolate covered meat in the first one.
Yeah.
so
delicious.
Yes. And I remember remembering when I first watched the film when I was very, very young, because my dad was a huge horror movie watcher. And I remember probably watching it when I was younger than I should have been to watch it, but thinking, why are they green? Like, what's with the green? Like, kind of the makeup really, really weirded me out. Like, I didn't understand. It's just like, they're dead. Why are they green? They look kind of Martian-y. And but obviously as the franchise goes along, they become more and more zombie-like, and you see that makeup look disappears completely.
Yeah, well, interestingly, I think they become more and more zombie-like because our conception of what zombies should look like is based on Day of the Dead, which is the movie that Tom Savini hails as his magnum opus, his magnum opus to what zombies should look like. Because
of course, let's take that step back because you just skipped over one of my personal heroes, Bernie Wrightson in the 70s, right around the time Dawn of the Dead came out, was drawing zombies that look like how we think of them today. So in art, it was already starting to change the zeitgeist of what zombies look like. And, technology just wasn't there to have rotting flesh, like how beautifully Bernie Wrightson
it would have been one way to do it, but I don't think you could do that on a
yeah, no, but I'm just saying you can't skip out on Bernie Wrightson's influence on it with early heavy metal and the weird ass stuff he was doing in the 70s before heavy metal, where he was drawing zombies. But he did a lot of Stephen King work later because of it.
I think you just got well actually on your own show, by the way, Forrest.
Wait, which comment?
The Day of the Dead being
no.
Yeah, co-host just said,
so
come on.
Yeah. He's just I don't know who Bernie Wrightson is.
Is somebody talking?
I'm gonna check out the comments. I don't care about what Andrew's
saying.
No.
Andy definitely well actually me with that. Not keeping up with my comics or
Yeah, well, no, Bernie Wrightson is a very important artist.
What did he work on? Is this an EC Comics guy? Like what?
He came in a little after that. He co-created.
Yeah, see, Conan doesn't know either.
We
don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
What I don't know.
No, I mean, he co-created Swamp Thing. He did a beautiful book version of Frankenstein in the 70s, which if you can track that down, get it. It's his best work. Cycle of the Wolf with Stephen King. He did one of
I have that about 2 feet that way. Yeah.
Yeah, he did one of the Dark Tower series books. He did all the illustrations for one of them. I can't remember which one. He did the really bad Punisher, where Punisher comes back from the dead and is like an angel hunting demons.
Oh, he did that one?
He did Batman versus Predator, or no, Batman versus Aliens.
Frankencastle, by the way.
Yeah,
is what that was called.
No, that was later.
Right? Oh, no, you're
no, 1998. Whenever they did
the Avenging Angel. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's an Avenging Angel. Nobody talked about it. He had this heaven gun. It's the dumbest thing, but Bernie Wrightson's getting paid. He was almost going to do the Black Widow series.
Also,
he did
Oh God.
Ghostbusters, The Faculty.
Yeah, he did Creep Show. He did
Yeah.
He did the Creep Show paperback.
Yeah, he did the all the animations were based off of his stuff. Because he kind of had that EC vibe.
One Thing, and I think he even did like, I'm trying to think, there's something else. He did like a bunch of old school Vampirella and like weird things you don't think. Yeah.
Captain Stern was his thing. I was on the heavy metal movie.
Yeah.
Which one was that?
What was that?
Which one was that? Which segment
Captain
was that?
Stern. It was like the oblivious kind of space hero in the movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He did the comic that was based on.
The stuff that stands out to me is the horniest stuff of that, which is most of it.
Yeah.
Horny
that was
movie.
a little horny.
Pretty horny.
Yeah.
We're all horny for zombies over here. But you're saying chocolate covered meat, and you're talking about other people being horny.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just do the nicknames. I don't explain them. Interpret them however you like.
Yeah, I mean, but like, all right, so I'll stand corrected on that. I'll stand well actually on that. But you know, I think for Tom Savini, because I was listening to that Tom Savini Eli Roth podcast today. Well, he wasn't actually the one interviewing, which is kind of funny that like they would have, you know, his producer, showrunner, like interview the people, and then Eli Roth would come in for the history of horror and be like, well, and do the voiceover for it. But his showrunner was interviewing Tom Savini, and it seemed like Tom Savini was having a lot of trouble during Dawn of the Dead with trying to figure out the color of like what an actual, or not, I mean, what that decaying of a body would look like, because obviously Night of the Living Dead was a black and white movie, and then he feels like when it comes to zombies, Day of the Dead is kind of his magnum opus, because he actually started going to coroners, just asking for a little piece. No, he started going to coroners and asking them for various information about like what each kind of level of decay would look like.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, so he would go have these conversations like, hey, this level of decay, you know, at this point in time. So every zombie in Day of the Dead looks different because
they're different coloring. Yeah, and as they get further along as well. And I also love it, like, why is the doctor character always like a bumbling idiot? Whenever there's a doctor, like in Day of the Dead, he's like kind of a bumbling idiot. Like and so how is this guy's supposed to be? But they're always like, like really comically like a bit off. Like,
well, I mean, I think that there's a counterpoint, I guess, where it's like, you know, I mean, they imply it in Dawn of the Dead, where, you know, they're kind of trying to figure this out along with everybody else, and it's like, you know, we need the people like as a concept to figure out, you know, we need the people to like kind of settle down, so like the scientists and the doctors can kind of figure out what's going on, but then at the same time, like they don't know what's going on any more than anyone else does.
Yeah, but they're going to debate about it, which is a key. I forgot, first of all, how entertaining that beginning is, but also like how unfortunately prescient it is, which is like shouting heads, you know, which is like kind of what just is life now.
Yeah,
you know, it's like debate where it's like, and also the world is burning, by the way, like while you guys debate this, you know.
Well, at one point they talk about they're like, oh well, don't worry, we're working on a vaccine.
Yeah,
which is like the most prescient because I remember at the beginning of COVID being like, okay, what the fuck is happening? And shout out to Dr. Eric Osgood, who was, you know, in the chat, the first person in the chat, because he really at the time
did not answer your question in any way, shape, or form, but we appreciate you.
No, at the time, well, at the beginning of the pandemic, he was really helpful in talking through like, or you know, like for a long time, especially like, well, Michael passed away, and he came on to TMBS after Michael passed away, and was explaining, like, breaking down kind of the scientific angle of the pandemic, what was happening. But I mean, in this kind of pandemic situation at the beginning, I remember they're working on a vaccine, like, you know what I mean, like, quote unquote, because like you're sitting there waiting for a vaccine to happen. You're like, all right, well, if a vaccine isn't happening, like, you're just telling me to hold tight, like, we're gonna figure this out. Like, do you really believe, like, how long is this pandemic going to go? There's no answer to that question. You know what I mean? Like, when is there going to be some kind of medical like help for it or a vaccine or something? There's no answer to that question. So if you take that and ramp it up to the point where where the dead are walking, and you like, and then that same kind of like cable news mentality where it's like one person versus another, which he's like, this isn't one of your talk shows. Like that makes perfect sense. That's crazy prescient, because like an emergency situation is happening. In that case, scientists and like medical professionals want people to treat it like, hey, this is like a PSA, and then as a either for profit or like ratings based media channel, or like one of the few channels that people are tuning into, like the hey, this isn't a talk show thing makes perfect sense, because on the other hand, it's like, let's keep people watching to make sure that like so
it's a model that still works.
Yeah.
And we got James Carville and some guy from the Project for a New American Century on. They're gonna scream at each other for a while. Great.
Yeah. But then I like that in Dawn of the Dead it continues to devolve, which it has, at least in the US too. I mean, I don't like everywhere else. I don't know necessarily if our level of devolving into weird Fox News like conservatives going, because like it feels like at least like half the country have decided like, oh, this vaccine isn't real, it doesn't work, and it's like, all right.
And then you've got your like the other half, the disease doesn't exist at all.
Yeah, no, those are the same. I mean, I think that's the same half.
Kind of
the
the
time.
same
Like,
people, yeah.
Yeah. So you have like you have one side of it that's you have one side of it that's like, we don't want, like, because first it was the masks, and that's the side of the country that was like, well, we don't want to wear masks. You can't make us wear masks in places. So it's like, all right, well, there's a vaccine. Oh, well, you really want us to just trust you on some vaccine, and then it devolved further into like, you know what I mean? So every time there's like some kind of medical solution, they don't trust it. So that's one half, and then the other half, a lot of the people are a little bit too deferential. I feel like to big pharma, and that worries me too.
Implicitly
feed the
trusting,
zombies. Feed the zombies. That's the answer. Isn't that what Ben Burgess said in the movie? It's like Pirate Ben Burgess.
Look, logic to the left. We have to drop nukes in major American cities.
Yeah, how come that guy hasn't come on the show yet? How come Ben hasn't been on the show yet? What the hell? As much work have you done for that guy? What the hell?
Yeah, what the fuck, Ben?
Come on, man. Man up. Jeez. Sorry, that's sexist, but seriously.
Well, hey, how about badge up? Because those things can take a pounding.
Do you see? Yeah, exactly. Badge up. Yeah.
To be fair, I guess to be fair on the Ben point, like there's 20 movie streams with Ben that exist with me and Ben going back and forth with random guests.
But none of them have me giving him grief except for that Oscar show.
That Oscar show was a fun time.
It was a good time. Anyway, whatever. That's too insular. That's yeah. Forget it.
Real heads will know. No, but so the pandemic angle of it was just, it is fascinating to me, because it's taking the timeline for this pandemic, and I know, like, obviously not purposely doing it, but I mean the Spanish flu existed, and like, so it's kind of taking what happened during the Spanish flu and like repurposing it for, I think, mass media, and then kind of still ramping it up by a lot. Like the idea that like that timeline, I feel
like it kind of like evolved, like, because when it started, it was more like if a zombie bit you, you became one, and then as the whole Romero evolution happened, it then became something you caught. Like at one of the films, it was like in the water or something, and as it later on, it becomes more like a disease that you catch rather than But in the earlier films, it's like you had to be bitten for it to get it. You couldn't. No one was ever like guaranteed to become one. Whereas sort of near the end, it was like everyone could, sort of thing, which I felt.
All right, so this is actually, I guess this is a good moment to ramp it down on Walking Dead, right? Bring that up like for the end of this, because I don't want to get it too far past an hour and 30 minutes. Walking Dead is obviously interesting. I have a clip like play at the end of George Romero talking about why he didn't get involved with Walking Dead, and it's kind of equivocating on it. But I mean, Greg Nicotero is kind of Tom Savini's bitch boy for a long time before eventually taking over on The Walking Dead.
Wow.
No,
tell us how you feel.
Tom Savini literally pointed a gun in his face that was loaded with blanks and shot a gun that did like to scare the shit out. Like they would prank each other, and Tom Savini bought him a tarantula because he was afraid of spiders and made him have a tarantula in his house. I was like, and filled his entire aquarium full of the terrarium, not aquarium because obviously that would drown the tarantula, but he filled the terrarium full of crickets and just left it like that while he was house sitting for him. Like I was listening to these stories today on the Eli Roth thing, and it was basically hazing Greg Nicotero, who then turned around and became, he's making way more money than probably Tom Savini ever did during Walking Dead. So who won that exchange in the end? I would take a few.
When Walking Dead came out, like, I got to admit, like, I was really into it when it first came out. Like,
Great. The Darabont first season? Oh,
yeah.
Good.
Like, I was like, this is fucking insane. And even like you Forrest said earlier, that you make them faster, they're fucking more scary because you know that you can't just kind of outrun, or you feel less like way less in control than when you see them kind of coming down the road with plenty of notice. But like
we're kind of junkies as a population. Like when it comes to horror films,
more, and the adrenaline.
Yeah. And the point that I think George A. Romero is making in Dawn of the Dead, to go back, I guess, it is a similar thing. Like he ramps up the violence throughout it, and it's like we're kind of junkies to these. I mean, number one to zombie movies, but like violence in movies in general, we're desensitized. We need more and more and more. But also, kind of as that happens, it becomes harder to make that social commentary.
Yeah, well, even Romero's Land of the Dead, they're fast. He mightn't say they're fast, but they are fast. They're a lot faster than
somebody sold out. Somebody sold out to
exactly. They're a lot faster. They've developed like brain capabilities like much quicker. They don't seem as like dazed, kind of thing and whatnot. But they're definitely faster, and they can communicate to like congregate as a group together and join. So it's like eventually he kind of did go down that route without addressing it, like in a subtle way. It's like you did fasten them up, but you just didn't want to kind of say you fastened them up in a way. But
I don't want to. I don't want to take away from the next clip you have put up, but I'm gonna. How do you guys feel about like the World War Z kind of zombie herd thing? Like that kind of like, I think Zombieland 2 kind of did that a little bit. Like, I mean, is that like, because what else do you do with them, right? It's like, okay, they were slow, now they're fast. Okay, now there's a herd of them.
You feed them. That's what you do.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what Ben Burgess told us.
Yes, Pirate Ben Burgess.
There's like, once you get past that thing, then it's like, what's the next level of a zombie film? Is it more gore, more violence? Like,
World War Z, they like overcome the Israeli wall to like, holy crap!
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Watching them get over the Israeli wall kind of made me happy. But
same here.
Like, dang,
I think that it's. I mean, that movie is much more disease based, right? Like that movie kind of feels a lot more like a.
I mean, that's where Doctor Who plays Who Doctor.
It's closer to like 28 days later or something that way, where they're infected really rather than zombies.
Exactly, they're infected and all very fast. It's like it's the same when you get to the Diary of the Dead and Survival of the Dead, which are by far, I think, Romero's some of his worst work. Like in terms,
I haven't seen Night Riders, but I'm pretty sure you're right. Yeah,
it's pretty. He's just kind of pumped out whatever he could. I feel
that's like Iggy Pop doing Butttown. It's like
it is. Yeah, like, that's kind of what happened. And those, like, the idea that he had behind it was fantastic, but the execution in both of those films was pretty bad. Like,
I think this is a really good point to make, to like connect this back to Walking Dead, as a graphic novel series because I've read every single one of the Walking Dead graphic novels.
The comics are great. Yeah,
yeah.
they're unimpeachably great. All great.
No, but
way better than the George Romero comics.
Yes.
Are there George Romero comics that are made by George Romero?
Yeah.
No, there aren't.
Well, his name's on it.
No, there aren't.
It could be like what Neil Gaiman did with Techno Comics, where he would just send a paragraph to the actual writer, and then they do all the heavy lifting.
Yeah, I meant on the writing side, not on the art side, obviously. Like, you know, because someone
no. As far as I know, Romero, was supposedly involved with the story, wasn't the writer though. But there were, Night of the Living Dead comics that Romero wrote.
All right. Well, the Robert Kirkman point I'm making, is that the spoilers here, but the end of the end of Walking Dead, the comics ends very abruptly, and it's because Robert Kirkman runs out of ideas. And I was like,
it's a good thing to run out of ideas and just stop.
I mean, yeah, like not keep going after you run out of ideas.
Okay, so the reason that I was annoyed by it is because for the first time, it felt like in a comic like this, Robert Kirkman was kind of making a socialism versus capitalism point, and I kind of was really enjoying that part of it because I kind of gotten a little bit bored of I liked the Whisperers story arc. I thought that was kind of I don't want to say fun, but it was kind of like it was kind of interesting. Well, because each time it feels like
he kind of ended it before that, and you're like, that's the perfect ending, great, and like, oh, but also the Whisperer, so it's good. Like, oh, I had another good idea, so I'm gonna keep going, and also this is making a lot of money now.
No, but I have a very specific take. I have a very specific take on the comics, not the show. The show I think
we're talking about talking about the comics at this point. Let's make that explicitly clear.
Each time they kind of ramp it up. Each civilization gets bigger, and it kind of feels like the Robert Kirkman point in this case is that they're repeating they're repeating world history. So it felt like the Commonwealth was kind of America, right? Like it's kind of empire that takes us back to society as we knew it before before the virus happened. So each time it feels like it ramped it up, right? Like first they're just kind of disparate people living off the land, and in these groups, and then all of a sudden they have the prison, and the prison, at least like they finally kind of have a civilization, but they can't really keep the civilization, and there's the hordes of zombies at the gate, like the walkers, as they say, at the gate, like what I mean, like constantly threatening them. So it's like they can't really stay in the situation, but like it is a certain place that they're finally putting down roots. And then what I mean? So they're ramping it up from there, and obviously they have the hunters and everything going up to that. But then finally Negan has like a place, and Hilltop is a place. And you know what I mean? So they have multiple civilizations, but they're kind of empires. There's somebody ruling from the top. And in the case of this, like they have to pay this tribute, which finally they have an entire war over not wanting to pay tribute to him. And he's this dictator, and it's kind of there's still one empire ruling over all of the other empires that they finally overthrow. It felt like when they finally got to the point of the Whisperers, it was it was this almost barbarism, like this return to literally going along with nature, versus like a civilization, and they finally overcame it, but it took a really long time. And they're being dragged back down to the depths of this, and finally they get to the Commonwealth, and it feels like that's kind of in some ways like the U.S., like empire. Like it finally is a place that has all of these different sides, and it's finally like capitalism and the status quo that we had, because everybody within the Commonwealth is within the status quo that they had before this all happened. And it's like we can go along with this. It can be comfortable for everybody, but you have to return to that status quo. And it's this thing where Rick's group has been kind of living in an incredibly, like, I don't want to say communistic, but like everything is shared. There's not necessarily. I mean, people have taken over as leader at different various times, but like
it's like democratic socialism. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not. It's egalitarianism. Yeah. It's egalitarianism versus the
duocracy, as they say.
Yeah.
Well, I'm chopping the head off Zombie Caucus, and over there is the planting corn caucus.
Yeah.
Well, do you think that? But do you guys think that that's kind of like the same sort of ideas that Romero was trying to get across with Land of the Dead? Because I kind of feel like that's like what he was like kind of going for. But like,
I didn't make it all the way through Land of the Dead. I saw the beginning part of it, but I don't know. I just
Well, you get Dennis Hopper does a great Rumsfeld impression. That's what I'll say about it.
Yeah. And there's the
it's not great, but it's
there's that bit where like there's Land of the Dead, that's the one with Asia Argento in it, right? And then you get but then there's that later one, which was like with the remake of
Diary of the Dead. Is that the one there? The social media
No,
one?
I was thinking of the remake of Dawn of the Dead when the couple gives birth to a zombie baby.
Oh yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
What?
That was where the movie kind of just fell apart. Like
I was like,
it was kind of okay, and then I
was like, check please, we're good.
Matt Frewer gave like one of the best performances in that movie, and then it gets ruined by Zombie Baby. And it wasn't even as good as the one from Dead Alive or Brain Dead, as y'all call it down under.
So this is my point exactly. Like it hits a certain point. It seems like in both the case of Robert Kirkman making the Walking Dead comics and George A. Romero, where the evolution of it doesn't go any farther, right? Like they can say something about society writ large and the I guess de-evolution of it and like where they think society should go, but like once it comes to actually expanding it past there, it seems like in both cases it falls apart.
No one can figure out how it's going to end or what is the resolution to this? Does it go away? Does everyone learn to live together? Like, nothing ever comes from any of them. I feel like it's just no one knows the answer or wants to attempt it.
Yeah, because that's not fun. That's not a fun story to tell. That's not
no,
fun.
But like I feel like because people want to watch the horror part, but I feel like almost there's room somewhere for some kind of really like tweaked out film about what actually would have what would be the ending in a scenario like this, like because with all the zombie movies still coming out, it's like we're playing out the same thing again and again and again, but no one can figure out how it would ever stop and continue.
What happens after? I mean, as much as I love Train to Busan, like what happens 3 years after Train to Busan?
Exactly.
Right?
Well, I think about it in terms of, I mean, it's a little bit silly, but I think of it in terms of like Planet of the Apes. So when do the zombies come? Like when maybe like do the zombies eventually evolve so much that they become better than us or same level as us?
Or do they switch places and suddenly we're the zombies, just like Planet?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, there's like, where do you go aside from recreating that same scenario? But then we never ever.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Just imagining these two zombies like groaning at each other with subtitles. Like, look at the silly humans, think they're dead.
Like having a debate.
Later,
that brings me back to that really fun Planet of the Apes episode that we did. Back, back home.
They have what do you call it? They have like mental cognition later, and they start being able to vocalize and say words. The guy with the headphones.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say they start being able to vote.
Well,
I was actually gonna say that. I was gonna say they start asking for the vote now.
That's how we got Trump.
Trump.
Yeah, and that kind of feel like it might be a weird and maybe a big fail at the pictures, but like I would love to at least see someone attempt to come up with a concept of what that would ever be like because I would love to see the dynamic of zombies actually evolve, like because we've seen the slow evolution. What happens when they do evolve to where they're like, now we are functioning, like we're functioning,
and y'all are not. We can time travel,
and we can like eat you if we want, like. So let's like, what would that,
Didn't they kind of do that in that one movie about the guy Nicholas Hoult was in it? Where he had the crush on the girl.
The girl,
yeah.
Zombies had like more.
I can't remember the name of that movie.
I know Warm Bodies.
Warm Bodies. Yeah.
Yeah. he's got cognition and he yeah. But a lot of the other zombies still don't or whatever, but he does, and then they work out. But it's more of like a weird love story film than it is that, but like they do touch on that evolutionary part of it in a way, yeah.
Well, I think you hit on something kind of cool though, because go ahead first.
No, there's also Fido, where they end up kind of defeating the zombies as like a and then kind of keeping. It's not like I always thought that was a really interesting version of it, where it ends up being that like zombies are now kind of integrated into society. Society maintains the way that it's been forever, and they're just integrated into like our reality shows.
Well, if I may, and I agree, nobody's like really dared to make a movie like that or put anything in media like that. But it's very easy. You have like a red state, blue state thing, right? There's zombie states and human states. I mean, this writes itself, people. Come on, like
like it's kind of like, and if you had the right level of like, if you had all the right elements of a good horror film. That are underneath it and underpinning it, I think you could make a kick-ass film, but I think it's too much and it's too scary because if you flop it,
ironically,
flop hard.
I tried writing something at one point like this, where like the whole concept was two friends, one's a libertarian and one's a socialist, are in the middle of a zombie apocalypse, and they're arguing like how to rebuild the society the entire time, and one by one the libertarians' friends, all the libertarians are getting killed off because they're trying to be rugged individuals and they get eaten, and the people who stick together survive the whole thing, except for like the one guy who's like slightly, who's like that libertarian who's like kind of gets it but like doesn't quite do the research to understand anything, and so at the end he gets the main character to read Ayn Rand and he just throws it in the fire after he's done with it, going, well, this is what it deserves. That's
there's real
like to kind of tie this to a I guess analysis.
You were trying to introduce a Walking Dead clip, weren't you, like a while ago? Like
but
like 20 minutes ago or something.
I'll end on that, and I'll have that as the last thing. But my last point is trying to tie this to like an overall theme for the show. I think it's the fact that much like our society itself, at least in the US, there's no idea like the new left was great, like in the boomer generation and also in Gen X in diagnosing problems. Like you look at art from those, like from the new left, or like from the 60s, 70s, even starting to go away in the 80s, because it seemed like there was a regression. A consumerist regression, but great at diagnosing problems, not so great at coming up with future solutions, and it frustrates me for sure. But it also, in some ways, like I don't think that zombie films in the way they've existed, like it's interesting that people raised at least in that generation, or people raised after that generation, also fall into the same trap, where when it comes to like apocalyptic ideas, like George A. Romero was 100% in the new left generation. Like, like he got angry in the car. Martin Luther King had passed away. Night of the Living Dead became a racialist movie, which I think is great that it did. But it kind of went along with society as it progressed, and he had. It seemed like almost like it seemed amazing that he had black heroes throughout these movies, but at the same time there's no what is the future going to look like idea from him. And I think that kind of goes with society itself, like the problems of society, like it's progressive that he had these ideas in front of him, but like the future of it never really gets mentioned, or the future of it never really gets envisioned. The imagination isn't there.
And that's where bringing it back to Walking Dead is where I kind of started to lose interest, because I was like, where are we going here? We're just going around in circles now. Like, where is the crescendo of this? And that's when I started to trail off. And like, I feel like there were so many characters that were either really likable or really unlikable, and like so many people I feel like dropped off as those certain characters left or whatnot. And like I thought Rick was such a strong character, whether you liked him or not, everyone kind of was rooting for him no matter what. And, you know, it was just as he had like left that I started to kind of lose interest in it. Even though I love, I've forgotten his name in the show, but I love the guy on the bike. The bike guy, you know,
Daryl.
the bikie. Yeah, love him. And you know, but I don't think he, as an amazing actor as that guy is, and all of those things, and the character
who doesn't exist in the comics and is actually a woman and a great character that appears in the show and is incredibly obnoxious and annoying in the show.
Right.
Like, it's super cool.
Yeah. Well, a few people have mentioned to me like different characters that are very different from the book and the comics to the TV show in their personality. You know, like
I've also a character that's now deceased. If I'm thinking of the same character with Daryl.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about Carol.
Yeah.
Because Carol as a character passed away after very early in the comics. After letting a zombie bite her.
She just kept coming and coming like every season. There's like a few in that show that I was always surprised that managed to stay alive. And I was just like, oh God. But I mean, Walking Dead, you can't go past one of the most funniest periods I think ever is the Rick and his annoying son memes. I mean, they brought me more joy. Than anything in my life. Like, I love those memes. The memes and his son. His son was so annoying. I was like, just throw your son into the barn or wherever. Just let him die. He's so annoying. Like, but best memes back then.
But I mean, likewise, it seems like the end of the comics is, I mean, Coral is still alive, and you know, they kind of passed the torch, which, you know, for a really long time, which is a problem that I think that a lot of writers have. They it's the George R.R. Martin problem, where like people kind of overhype their own work, and they're like, listen, the end of this is going to be fantastic, and then it hits the end of it, they're like, I have no idea what the fuck to write. And you know, I mean, it's probably good that Robert Kirkman ended at that point, but the thing that frustrated me is that you finally got to a point where it's like, listen, you guys can go back to the way things were. Like, you know, the Commonwealth in the comics is like literally the way things were, to the point where everyone has the same job. They're like, hey, what's your job? And they're like, oh, my job was like, you know, and then they put you into the station of your job, and you're kind of ranked by that point, and there's no way that you can, you know, evolve out of it. Like, which in the comics has been amazing that like all of a sudden, you know, you like your job wasn't looked at well within, you know, the society before this, but you know, your survivalist skills that you got from that job, or that you got from different parts of your life, like allow you to rise up to like a leader, or like allow you to rise up to this thing. And so finally, like, they're asking the question, like, do we want to go back to this society? Do you want to go back to the status quo, or are we going to be like egalitarian, which is the way that, you know, the Rick's group has been led. I mean, I think Rick is obviously the leader, and they've, you know, but like still, there's an egalitarianism where he doesn't take more than other characters do. So I found that, you know, and then all of a sudden the comic just ends. Rick dies, like curtain closes.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And then it was like, let's try and continue this on, and that's where I kind of dropped off and was like, now we're just kind of coming up with any old thing we can to keep it going. And
the show wants to continue the franchise, but it, you know,
and then you've got all those separate,
why wouldn't they?
What do you call it? The separate shows, the other ones, the
Fear of the Walking Dead, and
which I think had one.
The Fear of the Walking Dead. I'm like, the dude's a heroin addict, and you're making him a protagonist. He's like a heroin addict trying to run from zombies.
I think that the skills. I liked that angle of it. I liked the heroin addict.
That actually grabbed me when I first watched it. It was like, okay,
but then they killed him off. They couldn't think of anything else.
But they got the black guy that was just like, this is what I need to survive, a heroin addict.
It's like
he's the best character on the show. Is that dude right there?
Was. And I know they've made one that's a kid's version.
I don't know anybody else's name on that show, but Strand, because Strand is just awesome. I only watch the show just for him to show up and just be like, you know, need to find another heroin addict.
Yeah, But it was like, that's kind of like what I think a part of it was like, maybe that's really like what would happen though if it happened today. Like,
well, they did
you
an
would
amazing.
have
So they had that season. They ended it.
and random everybody type people. Like,
They had
it's not
that.
going
They
to
had
be
that. They had that season. They ended it, and then they have season 3, which I think is like the most perfect season of any. Or like I think that excels over everything. Like it was literally they just somehow like got into like the white nationalist, like the Charlottesville, all of that stuff was happening the same year, and they all of a sudden created like a season of TV where the bad guys were white nationalists. In that case, like white supremacists that were trying to reclaim their land from like indigenous tribes. And it was like, holy shit, this is really like, this feels like it's gotten into the zeitgeist that's happening right now. Like exactly. And then all of a sudden season 4, like all those characters either got killed off or whatever happened. And they're like, all right, we're going to do something completely different that sucked. And I never watched. Yeah.
Yeah. There's
and
always
these,
like, you can have you can have a day-long show about, you know, everyone fighting about George R. Martin. Like, you know, that's you could have a whole day of people fighting about that and the ending and whatnot. And, you know, that's a perfect example of the sheer horror of when someone fucks up so bad, like that you've invested all this time and energy into characters and to story arcs, and then it gets to the end and they just fuck it every which way they can, and everyone was pissed, like on every different, no matter what team you were on, you were pissed
someone recently was like, hey, if you were that guy and all of a sudden you're famous like that and like women are interested in you and you're kind of going around the world like
and you look like that dude,
like
yeah
they're like if you're that guy, like would you have the ability to write one more book? And I was like, all right, like I've never been a Game of Thrones person anyway, but like that's fair.
And you know, he even said numerous times, and even at Comic-Cons, that he had the story arc. He knew how it was going to end, but the guys working on the show couldn't wait for his ending and chose their ending, which is not what George R. wanted it to end like at all. So
it's a cavalcade of cocaine decisions is what it is, and it's fucking terrible.
Yeah.
Well, because it's like it's also a promised deadline of this is how the story is going to end. I'll tell you guys how the story is going to end. It doesn't end that way. George R. Martin's getting laid for the first time ever, and all of a sudden, like it's like
I'm sorry. I partied with him before the series started, and he was I wasn't supposed to tell his wife, so make sure his wife doesn't see this video.
Yeah. I didn't know he had a wife.
Because I was hanging out with my buddy, and he's just like goes up to him and he's like, hey, normally I'm the fattest guy in the room and you're getting more tail than I am. What's your secret?
Game of Dome.
Well, yeah, if maybe if I sleep with guy, then I'll get to sleep with the guy who play, I'll get to sleep with Hottie. I've forgotten his name all of a sudden.
And that's how I met George R. Martin.
You know what I mean? Because I was always Jon Snow team. I was Jon Snow. I was like, and I followed the story from the start. And George was like, fire and ice. It's always going to be about Daenerys and Jon.
Yeah,
it's always going to be either
pretty
Jon
clear.
is the winner.
If you read subtext, it's pretty clear.
Yeah, and it's like if Jon's going to be the winner, or it's going to be Jon and her ruling together. Like that was always sort of the idea.
George R. R. Martin was the winner.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like when they dropped in that bit about like how they were kind of related, and I was like, doesn't matter because in all those sort of shows, everyone's related.
Yeah. I mean,
like back then, they're related.
First episode, brother and sister are boning in the tower. Like
exactly. It's like they're always related because they're all like inbreds. Back in all those, historical royal families were all inbred because they didn't want their class to expand into the normal, population. So they would only mate with either fellow cousin of cousins or royal families from other countries. So they were always like inbred. It wasn't even seen as
more distantly related from.
Yeah. So it was always seen as.
You would only bring it up when there was like one world, like one ruler that was just so inbred that you couldn't not bring it up.
Yeah, you would.
And I mean that's why the royal family looks the way they do.
Yeah, they all got that same. Yeah, So it's
Yeah,
like they're all
exactly that same. Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna cut the royal family dialogue here and play this one last clip before before asking everyone for final thoughts. I just thought this is I wish he was more forceful about why he actually didn't join Walking Dead. I feel like there's other reasons, but this is George A. Romero. I was gonna say George R. Martin, but George A. Romero talking about
that's what the first R stands for.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you make of Walking Dead? The Walking Dead premiere, the most recent premiere, was the highest rated basic cable premiere ever.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's it's a real homage to you in a sense. The zombies are very similar in a lot of ways. But what did you think of what was become of this Walking Dead thing?
I wish they would have called me.
But I heard they offered you to direct some episodes.
Yes, an episode, but that's once the Bible is written.
Right.
And you
said no?
Not much. Yes, I said no because it's not my thing, and in fact, I thought it was a little too close for comfort, and so I basically said no. Even though a bunch of my buddies are working on it, Greg Nicotero and the boys from Sundance, and anyway.
Okay. If you say so, George.
Yeah, so I kind of feel like he wishes he'd done it.
Yeah.
He's kind of bummed he didn't. Like, like he made those last films that were fucking basically just like straight to video films, and and kind of just hit like dead water, and then that happened, and it's like
Dead Water would have been better. Freaking Dawn of the Dead on ships, great. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, but like it's just like it kind of feels like he's not hating on it, but like it's also like there's an inner. I feel like he wishes it had been him. Like, and then
as time went on, he kind of had more to say about how I couldn't find a vehicle with him.
How could you not? If you're that guy, how could you not be like?
And they were inspired. They were inspired by him. It was inspired by him. Like he create without his work, Walking Dead never would have happened. In that it really probably would never have happened. But like
What do I think of it? What do I think of it?
Yeah.
You gotta pay me royalties.
When he says
That
like,
should be me. I should be George A. Romero's Walking Dead.
Yeah, he directed an episode. He's like, "Oh, just an episode." Like it's almost like he's like,
well, no, I mean it is. It's a bit disrespectful. It's a bit.
I directed an episode called Night of the Living Dead. Have you freaking heard of it?
But he's like, I directed an episode. Before the bad
he ended up saying, and I couldn't find the clip from this. He ended up saying that it was like more of a soap opera than that he wanted to do, which I don't necessarily. Maybe I guess the show. I guess I kind of agree with, but he was like, "Oh, well, I would have done this." But it seemed like he was finally trying to find something to talk shit about, and he's like, "Oh my god, I found it."
I mean,
soap opera.
First season, even the second season, like they were really great. They were really great, and like, there would have been a part of him. I think that like, where he says there, I wish they had asked me. It's almost like I think he would have been involved had he actually had a part. I reckon he would have done it. I mean, he wouldn't have gone any worse than what he'd been releasing was crap. So he couldn't have lost anything by actually joining them, even if he only did it for a season or worked in some capacity as a writer or whatnot.
It would have been like Johnny Marr joining Modest Mouse.
He didn't pass away until 2017, so I guess it's the first
he could have had some kind of
first 17 seasons of that show, right?
Yeah,
I like the first. Honestly, I think the first 5 seasons of Walking Dead are good. I think that
it was the first. I can't even remember how many, but I mean, I watched it like I said pretty much till Rick passed away, and then I kind of lost my interest in it because I was like, he was like the last remaining one that I felt like had a connection to and was a part of the thread of the entire thing. And it was like, as much as I loved
the thing that pissed me off about Rick dying isn't just that Rick died. I mean, it is, but I think that they did themselves a disservice. The thing that really pissed me off is that they did the "is Rick dead?" like, or is he? Like thing where they're like, oh, he's gonna come back. So like, number one, if you're gonna kill off Rick. Like, have them find a Rick hand in the fucking water and be like, oh fuck, like, you know what I mean? Like, let's figure out what to do from here. They just have like, or is he? And then Daryl
Aren't they
takes
supposed
over.
to do like a big screen movie with Rick?
Yeah, but then they've
I mean,
also
like
said
Andrew
that-
Lincoln is a star. Like let's be honest here. Like that's what we're trying to say
nobody
here.
would even,
Andrew Lincoln,
you wouldn't know he's even British if you didn't, you know.
yeah, and like,
No,
well,
100%.
it's more than that. Like he's got the charisma and whatnot that like the guy who plays Daryl doesn't have. Like we all like him, but he works as a secondary character because Andrew Lincoln's doing all the hard work here in the show.
Right. But they work as a duo because of as a duo they work perfectly. And when you cut them off and have them separately, they're not as strong. Like Rick can still pull it off as strong, but Daryl can't. And then when Daryl had the whole like relationship, like besties with Carol, I was like, this is getting a little bit lame. Like, don't do it, man. Don't hook up with that old lady. I know I never did, but like it felt for a while like that's where it was going, and I was like, Daryl, no.
That's not what he told the National Enquirer. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, and in the comic books, it's and Andrea, who's a terrible character on the show, but an amazing character in the comics, and fills that Daryl role of the being like filling in the blanks of like what the other main character.
But like I mean, another interesting thing I think is that the governor is not a good character in the comics and is a good character in that season of the show. Because I mean, a lot of
it's in the comics, but it's different. It's
no. I'm saying the governor is not a. I didn't really ever feel like we got an
I see what you mean. Yeah.
I read all the comics, so like my opinion of I have the compendiums. Like I have the sacred texts.
The governor was much more of a fleshed out character.
Approval. You are, you're legit.
In the show,
you proved your bona fides.
No, like in the show, the governor feels like a politician who's been pushed over the edge. That's kind of fleshed out, and you understand that like he's someone that's willing to do pretty much anything and sacrifice even like the woman that he's having sex with if it means keeping power. In the comics, he's kind of a brutal person that like is driven by revenge, but like you don't really get the backstory of it. So I think the first few seasons of the show, at least, there's like an interesting like interplay, which I think happens a lot within any kind of written text and like a show or comics and a show. Like sometimes there are characters that you can flesh out a lot better in a show or in a movie that you can't necessarily in comics, because like the action in comics has to be a lot faster than it has to be in a show. I mean, I don't know what you think about that, Andy. Like, as our
different mediums. It's like
comic dude.
It's the Walking Dead comic is a whole other medium. You're not doing a because Joss Whedon tried to translate what he did on TV into Buffy season 8. I don't know if anybody's actually read that.
I read him. I liked it.
I don't think he got what he was trying to do.
No.
Because like they were thinking like I mean it was a bit of a failure because he didn't understand like what the difference between the two mediums were.
He tried to taste it like the TV show, and it didn't fly that way.
Yeah, and I appreciate some of the what he was trying to do there, but like I think it was a failed experiment. But anyways, but Robert Kirkman is a comic book writer, so he's gonna do what he knows best. And so the comic book is paced perfectly for a comic book or graphic novel.
No, it is. I'm not hating.
And you can't have those like slow burn scenes all the time. Like in that first season where like there's that tension slowly getting ratcheted up, and the same way as you can do that in a comic, because again it's different mediums, so it's a different way of telling the story, and as long as you understand that, that's the key.
But it also, I mean, I think the comic medium, characterization wise, does amazingly when it's someone like Negan who's overly theatrical throughout the entire thing, and the dialogue is just endless, and like there's so much interplay that like it happened through dialogue and through like all of that, like panel by panel, and that's interesting. I think with the governor, the way that they did with the way that they did him in the show, you can't do something like that in the comic because so much of it was like the actual actor, and his name's slipping my mind, but he's another British guy, which is kind of funny that so many
he's
British,
amazing. I can't think of his name either. Yeah.
But like his like the intimidating way he like stood, and his the whole way that he had relations with other characters, and this like weird politician thing where it's like everybody kind of was obsessed with him within that community. Like it's not something that lends itself, I think, to
it's one part Ash from Evil Dead, one part Donald Trump,
Yeah.
Like the charisma and the kind of cultishness of him doesn't come out as much.
Yeah.
Like in the show you can feel that, but it's not as like the weight of him is more so in when you see him physically, I guess.
David Morrissey is the name of the actor.
Yeah.
And the thing is again, it's comics are a lot of shorthand to tell you things, to kind of cut to the core of it. So you're not going to have a chance to really get that nuance either. Your nuance is really only going to come in like long stories, but you're not going to have a long story with the villain because that'd just be boring to have 167 issues of the governor.
Well, Negan can pull it off, but
Negan's a whole. Hey, he's got his own series now.
Oh, does he? Okay, well, and that's why I meant I
there was always a
I said Ash means Donald Trump. I meant for Negan, not for the governor. By the way, so
Negan.
We regret the error.
The sales from Negan go straight to the comic book shops, like more of it does than Robert Kirkman's not taking his stake in there. So comic book shops are actually making more money selling Negan, which is really important during the pandemic because a lot of them lost a lot of business. So buy Negan for that reason.
Support
By the way,
your local. Yeah, no, I'm literally pulling up one that I didn't put as an overlay before the show.
I was just gonna say like this 2 minor notes, so I'm gonna do 2 factoids real quick. First of all, total bullshit. USPS not shipping to Australia anymore. So if you have orders to ship, fuck you. Apparently, so that's new. That's like a last week thing.
Interesting.
And they're union and they don't cross picket lines, which is makes it more frustrating.
We kind of get fucked over a lot with with shipping and everything like that. And
it was no Rose Parade before, but it's
now it's like our
it's like
local
$68 now or something like it's like
insane. Someone sent me a box with like some like I always say it. I know you guys say it a different way, so I'm trying to remember which one. Tapatio and Tapatio. Which one? Like this hot sauce, right?
Tapatio.
That's it. Yeah. So we everyone here would say Tapatio.
Okay, that's funny. Tapatio was like, you mean pistachio? No, I don't.
Yeah, right. Because because you put them together the way we say things. Yeah. We say things in Australia like they read really kind of. So it's like Tapatio, and then one of my Mexican friends was like said it the right way, and even I can't say that properly. Like I say Tapateo or whatever, I still can't say it. Like and we that I had a friend send me like a huge bottle of that because you can't really get it here. Pepto-Bismol doesn't exist here. Tums doesn't exist here. Benadryl doesn't exist here.
Pepto-Bismol doesn't exist here. What do you mix with your whiskey?
Wasn't there that rumor that that Donald Trump had like the Australian NyQuil or something like that in his drawer in his office?
Oh yeah, because it has a little bit of that extra amphetamine, which you know what?
Really? We don't even have NyQuil. Like we don't have.
I don't remember what that was.
Sudafed. Donald Trump has
Sudafed
in his
we
drawer.
have Sudafed, but the Sudafed once they realized that Sudafed was being used to make methamphetamines and speed and stuff, they took that ingredient out. So Sudafed here doesn't have that ingredient. So
oops, all cocaine Sudafed.
Yeah, somebody watched Breaking Bad apparently and finally figured it out.
Yeah, so basically, like that happened ages ago, and you used to have to. They'd write your name on a computer and they'd stare at you from a distance, like to see if you'd pop up in a search, like that you'd been recently going to chemists asking for Sudafed. Because if you had, then they'd flag you as like you must be someone who makes drugs, like or whatever. But yeah, then they just took the whole ingredient out, and now we no longer have anything with codeine in it either. They've taken that off us as well now. So
see, that's where meth really changed the game, because before that it had to be shipped from somewhere else. With meth, all of a sudden, like it was household ingredients, and they're like, "Oh, what?
God knows
what household?"
what's inside any of that stuff. I would have no idea. I mean, yeah. So we get really screwed over by that kind of stuff. Like we're a bit stricter on it. And I love your.
It always made me laugh that Breaking Bad pretty much they always would censor their like breakdowns of like how you make it. Like whenever they were doing the chemistry of it, they'd have to go from like one thing to another. Like, you know what I mean? Like they couldn't actually give you the recipe because like people are gonna make meth with that. It's like people are making meth without that. Like
they're gonna pause the video and be like, "Wait, what did they do there?"
Yeah.
Jesse, you have to cook. And it's like, all right, well, all right. So first in my notebook it says.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah. So I had a huge. The point was, I had a box sent over of the hot sauce, and like all of that kind of stuff. The Benadryl night one that you have.
Tapatio? Is that what you called it? Tapatio?
Tapatio, kind of. Tapatio. Yeah. And my
that's way more adorable. That's great.
She loved it. She just laughed her ass off. She was like, "What did you say?" And I was like, "Tapatio."
Well, tapatio makes it sound like a child with a speech impediment trying to say pistachio and failing, which is great.
But it's like,
I can see it as like this is an Italian guy being like, "Tapatio."
Pistachio.
Like
Girl came over to my house last night.
Energetic is how we say things. So like you can't be putting words like that together that have no indication of how they're meant to be said in a different way. So if it's spelled like like pistachio, of course we're gonna say tapatio. Like it's just weird. It's just
you know how you play it off. If someone if you can play it off and someone can like tell you like, "Oh, what is like?" If someone says that, you're like, "You've never heard of that," and then you start giving them some like random recipe to something and explain like some food.
Like you gotta add the Vegemite.
Yeah. Just mention Vegemite exactly, and you're in the clear. They're like, "Well, I'll never make that."
Yeah, well, that's the secret of Australian licorice is the Vegemite.
You know what's crazy? Everybody in my
but no one knows how to eat it properly, and that's where everyone fucks up. Like I'm
Vitameja Vegemin or whatever
What's that?
Everybody in my family pronounces, the Lucille Ball sketch where she's like, it's Vitameja Vegemin or whatever.
Vegemite?
No, there's a.
That's a deep cut for this show, Forrest. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I think I time traveled too far back.
Yeah, here's some obscure Lucille Ball bits. Great.
That's not obscure. That's like her most famous thing. She got drunk. She got drunk because she kept drinking the sips of it. And
look, I know the bit and I like the bit. I'm just saying it's obscure.
Yeah.
I guess I am the audience, but yeah, I'm not.
Our first two episodes were like 50s movies, to be fair. It was Kiss Me Deadly, and it was I don't know. I don't remember
Manchurian
that.
Candidate.
What?
Wasn't it Manchurian Candidate was the second one?
Manchurian Candidate. Yeah. See? I don't remember what I've done or what I've talked about.
I had to draw that shit, so it's burned into my brain.
Hey, how about we talk about the Letterboxd top 5 for Dawn of the Dead, which is a great movie that this episode is ostensibly about.
All right. Well, we have the Letterboxd one sentence top 6. Six this time? Okay, Sorry. I was I was seeing if I could get Satan the guest on the pod. We have the we have the Letterboxd top 6 brought to you by Conan Neutron, and of course brought to you by Male Enhancements. All
right, that's right. Here are the top Letterboxd reviews, one-liners coming at you. Letterboxd, a place for film. You can find Movie Night Extravaganza on it, as you can find J. Andrew World and myself, Kevin Clark,
and me.
Well, you're the show. You're the show for us. Yeah,
Movie Night Extra. Oh,
that's you. Did you know that was you?
Yeah, I forgot. Then I realized it was literally just a movie night extravaganza letterbox.
That's your username. Yeah, I looked this up. I
Yeah.
do my homework, brother. So, Dawn of the Dead.
I only really use it to DM girls, so.
Dawn of the Dead.
You like movies?
We're off to a great start. The original shelter-in-place champs. Although those asshole zombies are hella disrespectful of social distancing guidelines. It's Kevin Clark, everybody. Kevin Clark.
Yeah. And
Yeah, I mean, where's the lie?
Number 2.
I prefer these brain-dead consumerists over the real zombies that are camped out for those weak-ass doorbuster deals with a Z.
All right, I was gonna correct you if you didn't do it with a Z.
No, that's what made it for me. That's why I got the pick. I got the nod because of the Z only. That's Leah. You know, it really do be like that sometimes.
I love it.
my favorite thing about like that as a review is that you could be saying that about any movie.
It works for almost anything. Especially something absurd. It really works. Tropic Thunder, you know, it really do be like that sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes. Not in my life, but sometimes.
That's right.
Oh, it's the same one. All right, so you're right. Top 5.
So good, we'll do it twice. Scream Queen. I'll happily take a zombie apocalypse if it means I can fulfill my lifetime aspiration of living in an empty shopping center. Yeah.
That sounds like my personal hell, but
yeah.
I mean,
I'd like to do shit, but I want to get out.
Also, by the way, they're not rating it like in the American way. They're rating it in like the European / you know what I mean, the rest of the
center
world.
with RE. Yeah, we get it. It's probably way cooler over there, to be clear.
And yeah, I'm gonna say they're probably Century.
More stylish, you know.
Hello.
More
Welcome
Vegemite.
to our shopping century.
Yeah. It's overrun with zombies.
the zombies all have mints in their pockets, so if you need fresh breath.
Eric Hatch. Liberated from their jobs, bosses, and bills, a group of friends finally have time to focus on what really matters. There you go. Letterbox top 5, 6. What is it? What's the bit? Whatever. Anyway, the Letterbox top
It was top 5. I was wrong. It was top 5. Top 5.
I did 6 last time, and that was just me like being like, this one's good too. You know, like whatever.
Yeah,
but
gotta get the extra in.
It's like a place for film and a place for movie night extravaganza. Follow Forrest, aka the show, so he can DM you and say, hey, do you like movies?
Yeah, and
you
that's
can't
all.
DM on that. That's why that's funny. Why that's funny is you can't DM people. That's why that's funny. Like,
I just love that.
The fact that it's a movie review site, and you know, I mean, literally asking someone if they like movies.
You like movies? Yeah, it's like what? No, fucking hate them.
Letterbox.
Well, I'm always asking you if you like birds on Twitter, so you know.
Yeah.
Letterbox, or as I call it,
honestly,
Tinder.
Males ask, do you like just about anything? It's like, do you like?
They'll find a way. Nature will find a way, and so will skeevy dudes.
Like I'm at a concert. It's like, do you like music? Yeah.
I mean, that is. I've seen that multiple
it's
social
always
media
that
sites.
way. I love it because it's so hilarious, and you can see them coming, and you can see it already in their head that they've thought about this amazing line, and it's just like, do you like movies, or like fucking do you like music, or it's like the worst possible, most pathetic line, and you're just like, wow, you've been standing back there for about 10 minutes trying to think of that.
That's what you got, huh?
That's the best you got. You couldn't even be like, oh, so you like, you kind of like, oh, so you're a big fan of this band playing. Oh, did you like the new album? Nothing. Just
right.
You like
Here's
music?
A specific reference to a song that we all like. No, it's like, do you like music?
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
it feels like social media in some ways, though. It feels like social media in some ways breaks dudes' brains, right? Because like you log on, like you create an account, and it's like, oh, are you a fan of music? And it's like, wow, some people maybe aren't a fan of music. I gotta ask them that question that I've only ever been asked while signing up to Facebook for the first time. It's like,
yeah.
There's like the amount of people that are not like fans of music in some form are like sociopaths. Like if somebody says, if you say, "Do you like music?" the person's like, "No." That's like red flag. Red flag.
Like, the only way I've ever heard it framed where someone answered it and was like, "Not really," was where it was framed like, "Do you listen to music?" And I worked with this guy, and he was really a lot older than me, and he said, "I don't listen to music. Like, I just don't listen to it." He didn't grow up around it, whatnot. He did, and he legitimately didn't listen to it. That I found fascinating. And I said, "Well, what about like?" And the only song he said that he could remember and that he liked was Wonderwall by Oasis.
Yeah.
It was the only song he knew. He was
That's
like,
the one.
That's
Jesus,
it.
I would hate music too.
That was like,
my God.
that was my short amount of time playing piano. It's like, what song do you remember how to play on piano? I remember how to do the chords from Wonderwall. It's like
I fucking love the Gallaghers. So I know people hate their music, but I fucking love them. I think they're the best comedy duo of all time.
Oh yeah. Their online presence is straight fire. Yes.
Maybe he got COVID, but his house was hot.
Yeah. Well, what about how Liam fell out of the plane the other day? That was the best thing I've ever seen in my life. Did you see that?
The Gallaghers.
He fell out of a helicopter because he was looking at the sun, and he fell out. And he posted a picture of it on Instagram, and he even said how he fell out. He's got this big Band-Aid like on his face, and he's like, "Yeah, looks." And then he like posts the next day, like, looks like the next show is gonna be cancelled. But like he literally posted immediately after it happened, like, "I was looking into the sun and I fell out of a helicopter."
It's like, where do you start with that sentence?
How do you fall out?
Literally 2 points in the Gallaghers. One is that I feel like as much as anyone hates their music, nobody hates their music more than they hate their music. And number two is hilarious that it's hilarious as like biological brothers, they couldn't even get along for long enough to like be a cohesive, like, you know what I mean? Like they have beef with each other. So it makes
oh my God, the conversation and the like the banter back and forth is like just the best thing ever. It especially when they had that giant Twitter war that went on for 6 months or something, and it was like potatoes.
And it still goes every once in a while. Someone tweets at them and asks about the other one. That they like try to spark the Twitter war again.
Yeah, and like, wasn't the answer like one word and it was a C word that ended with a T or something along those lines, if I remember correctly?
A word that you could say, Renee, and we can't say here because the connotation is very different.
Well, also we're American. We can't even,
no, that's what I'm saying.
English and Australians can say it all the time.
Do it in
they give children that.
That was what I just said.
Home style.
Oh, I think you took that as me saying. I think you took that as me saying that we can't say it as men, but I was trying to say that we can't say it as Americans, and she can say.
Oh, you say it here is just Australians. Yeah, it doesn't matter, female, male. You'd be like, you'd be out. You're just like, oh, what's going on? You see someone, you go, can't. What's up? It's a happy word, and then there's also like there's other versions of it. It's like, oh, what have you been up to? You can't. Like, it comes out
that would play very differently.
Really,
you would long for the tapatio if you said that.
And even I forget, like, the level of swearing in Australia is so high. I mean, I've probably said fucking a lot during this, and if I was drinking, it would be worse. Like, but we swear daily within every sentence almost.
I watch The Wiggles. I know how much y'all swear.
But we just swear. Everything's shortened to cute things like bikies, ciggies, like just like everything is, and everyone's names are made shorter. Like it'll be your last name, or whatever. Like it's how it's just everything has like. As much as I laugh about it and stuff, I think it's sensational as well, because it's sort of like you watch it, and even when I go,
and that's where Rupert Murdoch came from. The sensationalism of
God, I hate
words.
we hate
from the ground.
He's horrendous.
Yeah,
But,
Fox started up right about the same time I was going through my Australia obsession. So I was
Mhm.
watching like everything on Fox, Werewolf Baby,
we don't have Fox
and then
here.
I kind of realized like what Fox was, and
We don't have it
Well,
here.
that's why they call him. That's why they call him Sean Siggy Hannity.
But yeah, yeah, we have plenty of fantastic words, and like I remember I watched the Jay and Silent Bob movie that came out, and I was blown away and in tears when there was that scene with one of my, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so they had obviously, forgotten his name now. See,
Mark
but
Hamill.
Luke, obviously, yeah, Mark Hamill.
Mark as the cock knocker.
He does the cock knocker, yeah, because cock knocker is a word that we say here regularly.
Yeah.
Fuck
Cock
stick.
knocker. I feel like cock knocker made it over here. I said cock knocker a lot back in the
like
day.
but it's something that was just you would say in a normal sentence.
Conan cock knocker Neutron.
Yeah, like you're like, oh, that guy is a total cock knocker, or like like there's so many weird versions of dick cock things that are words here that are just normal, or variations with.
Yeah, well, we had the Me Too movement, so you can't quite.
Well, I mean, we've had it too, but it's still, I don't know, we still kind of can say certain things. It's the way you can't say, like, I can't say cunt in a derogatory way. That's towards
Cancel culture's out of control.
That one's out of, but you can tell someone.
Look, they won't even let you call someone a cunt anymore. Cancel culture. I think there's an inherently American way that we all say it. That like even if we move, like even if anyone in America moved to Australia or like any country where you can say, like, we would never be able to get into the naturalization of it.
Oh,
yeah, because it's like you are about to say the worst thing you could ever say to somebody right now, and here it comes. It's like there's a build up. There's a feel of like, oh.
It's the Dragon Ball Z.
Love it though. Like people love it. Whenever I go overseas, that's the first thing they want me to do. They want me to swear and swear and swear. And it's like, and the more drunk I get or whatever, the more I will swear. So everyone just laughs and they're having the best time. And then you're like, okay, I guess if it's like, because it's just like, for us, well, for me, I think I come from what we call a bogan, which is like bogan is like a redneck, I guess, but different. And it's like a bogan upbringing. So it's like AC/DC basically. My dad looks like a member of AC/DC and like, bikies, like, and all that kind of shit. So yeah, swearing and like, yeah, all that kind of stuff was kind of just something we did and it was around. But yeah, so I don't get too.
I'm being told to wrap this up because my brother is staying here and.
Your producer is telling you to wrap it up. Yeah.
Yeah. No. My family's telling me to wrap it up.
They're like, this is for your own good, Forrest. It's enough. It's enough now.
Yeah.
All right. Starting with Conan, I guess. Final thoughts on. I know it's been a long time. It's been like an hour since we've talked about Dawn of the Dead. But if you remember, that is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we had a whole parallel podcast series about Renee swearing, and that was lovely and very well regarded. But
well, we really had a lot of questions about Australia, but we can end it at that, I guess.
Asked and answered. No, I think Dawn of the Dead. So here's the thing: what I'll say when I come up with my top 10 movies of all time, which is constantly shifting, changing, evolving, Dawn of the Dead always stays in that top 10. And it's maybe the only horror movie that consistently stays. And one of the many reasons why is it's a very good film. Yes, it's a paragon of the genre. Yes, it started all these other things. Yes, there's certain tropes, et cetera, but there's so much to love about it. And it's honestly, when it comes down to it, just a really goddamn good movie. I was furious when I heard they were remaking it. And then I was doubly furious when I found out it was Zack Snyder. And that was before it was cool to fucking hate on Zack Snyder, too, by the way. And then it ended up being fine, but they shouldn't have called it Dawn of the Dead, and I would have been fine with it. But, like, I mean, yeah. By the way, how did we not talk at all about the zombies and commercialism angle on this show, ostensibly from like a leftist?
Because we got distracted by Australia existing.
Yeah, because we're too busy telling everyone to CUNT.
We should have buffered in 10 minutes for spare word Australian.
See you next Tuesday.
Yeah. Balls, whatever. So you guys are allowed to say cunt.
But but here's why. So this is like I think they call it asked and answered, right? When they were a lawyer. But like, here's why is because it's so internalized into, the lovers of the genre and film lovers. Like, we all think about that as like, yeah, man, it do be like that. Like with commercialism, like it's a mall. Although brought up very early, and we didn't talk about it at all. Nowadays would be very different because it'd be more self-involved with people on their phones, like whatever, et cetera. Cool. Didn't really work for Diary of the Dead by the dubs, but so iconic in the way that, like, it wasn't like he was trying to make a message movie or anything along those lines, but one of the best zombie movies. Like, honestly, I'm one of those people that I like it better than Night of the Living Dead, and I love Night of the Living Dead. But not as a great zombie movie, but a great movie.
Each one feels like it builds on the other one, right? Like, exactly. I don't think you have to necessarily, pick one versus the other. I think you have to just, each one builds on the concepts brought forth by the first one.
Yeah. And I think Dawn of the Dead's fucking incredible. And every time I see it, I'm like, wow, this movie kicks ass. So that's my thoughts on it. I'm sticking to it. Thank you.
All right, Andy, final thoughts.
Oh, final thoughts. Yeah, I do absolutely love Australia. Always wanted to visit there. No,
live show when the COVID is over. Live show with Renee hosting.
Yes. When Dawn of the Dead absolutely is one of my favorites for all the reasons Conan said. And the fact that it does kind of delve into a little bit of concepts of the end of society and how it is much easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism.
Look, okay, nice. the most important movie that you'll ever see, Dawn of the Dead. Okay, ideology. We need to understand.
We got Zizek on here. Holy shit!
Oh man,
we did our. I was up on the Give Them an Argument Zizek interview, and he roasted me, so he'll never be on the show. Anyway. Renee, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think my final thoughts are really like I said, I think that this was the like you said, each film builds, but I feel like this was the strongest in the chain of Romero films. I feel like it was the makeup is like unsurpassable, even as it gets further along. Nothing in this film, like the gore, the effects, nothing is better than they are in this film. Like the following film is great, but the it's not Savini, and I think the Savini aspect of it is so important. And just I think the whole way, just the ethos of it being done on a low amount of money, everyone doing it because they really wanted to. Like, people wanted to be zombies. They got given a coffee and a donut, and that was it. And a lot of and they all lived at the mall, like, as well, like the whole filming, and I just think overall, like, just in terms of themes, concepts, and all the things that he attacks, whether he knows subconsciously or consciously that he's done it, it's just a very clever, well-made film, and it steers away from the more, like I said, the more stereotypical female tropes as well, like we had with Barbara. Like he made up for the Barbara when we came into this one, and we sort of started to see that a different way for females to move in this genre.
Female trigger warning. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry.
Hashtag guess hashtag misogyny, hashtag trigger warning.
Sorry.
Yeah. So I think that all those things aside, I also think it's got a really solid ending, and yeah, you feel like at the end of it, it's just like
it's a powerful ending. That's
so
like you're like, really? It's gonna end like this?
Stephen King novel, and I just saw it. Now I'm laughing.
Yeah, I think that Night of the Living Dead in some ways has a stronger ending in terms of like the racial elements of it, like literally just being like, oh wow, he survived. Oh no, he's like literally just being killed off by a lynch mob, which I think for that specific time is powerful. But I think this movie kind of gets us to the point of like, you know, zombies devouring us as a species. The end of, you know what I mean? Like yeah, they're us, but like they've devoured whoever is left from this.
Yeah, and it has like there's this more closure on it, but it's not necessarily people. It's like we're devouring ourselves. There's like this undertone to it that
it's
I think
hard to feel like Night of the Living Dead is like even really a zombie movie in some ways, because like, you know, it feels like the zombie genre starts with this, like as like a conscious choice in a lot of ways. Anyway, I have to end it here. Thank you.
Can I just say, Forrest, can I say real quick that like I think it's amazing that as dour and like dark as Dawn of the Dead is, and as much as you're like, oh, and I guess one of our protagonists is going to commit suicide, right on. You know, the end of it.
The end of it originally, by the way,
hopeful. It's like how much. It's like how much gas. Yeah, how much gas do we have? You know, I don't know. You know, like that's like there's sort of like, well, you never know. But you probably know. Let's be clear, but you never know. And like I think that that's a really beautiful ending. Like I think that that's like all, you know, as an art house snob and all that crap, despite what Matthew Film Guy might say. Like I love that kind of like ambiguity.
Well, the original ending is that everybody commits suicide.
Well, exactly. So that's a terrible ending. Like that's like you did
terrible deal.
Terrible ending. Nobody liked it. Everybody wanted their money back. Yeah.
All right. So I've got to end it here.
Sorry, I mansplained over Renee's final thoughts. My bad.
Goddamn mansplainers.
Goddamn cocknocker.
I love how you spell cocknocker.
Yeah, thank you. That was for you.
Yeah. Is that supposed to be my accent? The car?
I will neither confirm nor deny.
All right. So with that, I'll say, listen, zombies, they're going to take over the world. Get to your local mall. Black Friday all the time. Might be a more fun world for all of us. No money, MMT. Anyway, left is best.